Chapter 2141. Every inch of his blood, flesh, and meridians started to materialize. Lan Xiao propped himself up and slowly brushed his face with one hand. Brow bone, nose, chin, his skin was real and it was still warm. It was a touch that he hadn't felt for tens of thousands of years. Everything was too real and it made him feel like he was in a dream. He heard his own heartbeat. It was strong and rhythmic. He touched his chest. It was a sound that he had never heard before, even in his nightmares. It actually worked? He muttered softly, still immersed in an indescribable shock. He had fantasized too many times and waited for too long. When the day really came, he didn't know what to do. Big Bao. Diwu Zhang's exclamation finally woke Lan Xiao up. He immediately looked up and saw Dugu Mabao's body sway as he spat out blood again. Lan Xiao was shocked and immediately got up. Diwu Zhangzi had already supported Dugu Mabao. Big Bao, how are you? Lan Xiao's face didn't have the usual teasing expression as he asked with a frown. He knew very well that Dugu Mabao had reached his limit after summoning 4 golden Tianlei. Although the last 2 were sent by Chu Luiyue, it took a lot of energy to merge them into Lan Xiao's body. Now that it was over, he relaxed and finally couldn't hold on any longer. Dugu Mabao shook his head. I'm fine. I just need to rest for a while. He paused and looked into the distance. Luckily, everything went smoothly. That thing was suppressed by you, and didn't have the energy to care about us. Lan Xiao saw that although his face was pale, his breathing was still stable, so he was relieved. Hearing him mention this, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to her this time. If she hadn't sent 2 golden Tianlei at the last moment, he would have been in deep trouble. Diwu Zhangzi also nodded in agreement. He couldn't hide his pride and joy. That's right. Who would have thought that she would choose to break through and become a god? Originally, they all thought that it would take a long time for her to reach this stage. Dugu Mabao fixed his gaze on the other side and said, "Let's go back." What? Lan Xiao was shocked. Aren't you going to wait for Yu'er to come over and meet her? Dugu Mabao did not hesitate. If you want to meet him, there will be opportunities. There's no need to rush. This time, you were able to successfully reconstruct your divine body by taking advantage of Qiyu and Yu'er's help. But that didn't mean that it wouldn't be noticed. Lan Xiao's expression turned serious. I almost forgot about this. He paused and ground his teeth. I was thinking that I would be able to officially meet the last this time. He touched his face regretfully. At least DeBeo had a conscience and didn't ruin his face. Originally, he had hoped to use his peerless beauty to amaze you. Diwu Zhangzi seemed to have seen through his thoughts. He resisted the urge to roll his eyes and politely reminded him. He reminded politely, stop dreaming. She already has Rongxiu. Why would she care about your looks? Diwu. Lan Xiao was instantly enraged. Seeing that you've suffered a lot today, I'm already being very polite. Diwu Zhangzi raised his chin. If you're not convinced, I have a mirror here. Lan Xiao glared and squeezed out a sentence after a long time. You win. Let's go. Not long after Chu Luiyue sent out the 2 golden Tianlei, she sensed the shocking movement over there. Vaguely, a ball of bright light was looming. Her hanging heart finally calmed down. Looks like it's a success. She let out a long breath. Rongxiu moved and came to her side. You, Chu Luiyue turned to look at him and saw that his eyes were deep and filled with heartache and gentleness. His lips curled up. Is this considered a blessing in disguise? Rongxiu's gaze silently swept past her brows. At this moment, that totem had already quietly dissipated. When she broke through to become a supreme god, the light was too bright, so no one should have noticed this. It's just that Dumpling and Zichen's injuries are quite serious. I reckon they'll need to recuperate for a while. Speaking of this, Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Zichen's injuries were mostly external, and a few bones were broken. Even now, thinking about it still made her heart tremble slightly. No matter what, the legendary 3-eyed eagle had a rather high status and was quite powerful among the divine beasts. Moreover, Zichen had the wing bone of a great phoenix dragon in his body and half of Mao Jin's bloodline power. He was definitely not something an ordinary divine beast could compare to. However, even he was injured to such an extent. It wasn't hard to imagine what he had gone through previously. Besides, she was also very worried about Dumpling. Putting aside the injuries on her body, Dumpling's most crucial problem was that she had forcefully opened her 6th meridian. Even though this had increased her strength, the disadvantages still outweighed the advantages. She didn't know why the other party had done this to Dumpling. Chu Luiyue was perplexed. Dumpling was her contracted divine beast. If the other party wanted to torture Dumpling or kill her, there were many ways to do so. Why did they have to do this? Unfortunately, she didn't have the chance to ask this question now. And even if she did ask, the other party definitely wouldn't tell her. Rongxiu gazed deeply at her. After a long while, he sighed softly. Don't forget there's still yourself. She had only been thinking about Dumpling and Ziqin, but had neglected the fact that she had just forcefully broken through to become a supreme god. Now, everyone should be looking at her with envy. However, how many people could bear the pain of forcefully tearing their yuan meridians and breaking through to become a supreme god? It was also for this reason that he rarely talked to her about breaking through to become a supreme god. He had thought that when the time was right, she would just let nature take its course. However, reality often didn't go as she wished. Chu Luiyue blinked. She placed her hand in his palm and gently hooked his fingers with her fingertips. I know. Her voice was soft and her eyes were like stars. There was a rare hint of coquettishness in her voice. She knew Rongxiu too well. Although he looked the same as before on the surface, she could clearly hear his emotions from his words just now. I had no choice this time. Rongxiu's heart skipped a beat. He held her hand tightly and said in a low voice, Stop fooling around. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. From a certain perspective, her man was quite easy to coax. Rongxiu paused and asked, Aren't you going to take a look over there? Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and shook her head. Perhaps now wasn't the best time. She seemed to have some sort of tacit understanding with them on this point. She glanced at the sky. At this moment, there was already a hint of white on the horizon. It was almost dawn. We should go back, Chu Luiyue said. Hearing that Chu Luiyue wanted to go back directly, the others present were a little surprised. However, when they thought about it carefully, the illusory palace had already collapsed. It seemed that there was no need to stay. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2142. Everyone had come for the secret technique that could allow them to break through the shackles of the Supreme God. However, most of them died or were injured. It was already a miracle that they were able to return safely. Yao Bin stepped forward and bowed solemnly to express his gratitude. Thank you, Master Yu and Sun Saint, for your help this time. If it weren't for you, the people of Purple Light County would not have been able to escape. If you have any requests in the future, Yao Bin and the people of Purple Light County will go through fire and water without hesitation. Rongxiu said. It was all thanks to Yuer's help this time. I won't accept Princess Yao's kindness. Yao Bin immediately understood. Rongxiu wanted to put all the credit and favors on Chu Luiyue. Actually, he was not wrong. The two Tian baby belonged to Chu Luiyue. It was also Chu Luiyue's people who helped them escape in time. Chu Luiyue smiled. Princess Yao, you're too kind. I'm a person who likes to make friends. If people respect me, I'll respect them tenfold. It's best if we can help each other. Actually, this was just a small matter. Princess Yao, you don't have to take it to heart. Master Yu is very talented. Now you've become a supreme god at such a young age. It's really admirable. This may be a small matter to you, but to us it's a big deal. No matter how grateful we are, it's not enough. Yao Bin said sincerely. Previously he had stood up for Yuer in Fang Province City. However, this time Yuer helped them without hesitation. He really owed Yuer a big favor. Shirui stepped forward and nodded in agreement. Yes, you are. If it weren't for you, we would have been in danger. She didn't care what others thought. Anyway, she was very grateful to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue smiled. It's not worth mentioning. Now that everything has been settled, we're going to go back. Everyone please go ahead. After that, she and Rongxiu were about to leave. However, at this moment, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from her body. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. With a flip of her palm, the two Tian baby appeared in her palm. At this moment, a black line suddenly appeared on the emerald green shoot. Almost at the same time, Shirui, who was standing beside Chu Luiyue, suddenly widened her eyes. This two Tian baby, seems to be devouring my strength. Soon Yao Bin's expression changed. This was because he had also noticed that the force in his body was continuously spreading toward the two Tian baby. They weren't the only ones. Everyone around them had the same feeling. What's going on? My strength seems to be fading as well. And me? This is definitely the heaven-wrecking holy seed. What the hell is going on? Several voices rang out one after another. Everyone's gaze once again focused on Chu Luiyue. Astonishment, suspicion, and confusion. Chu Luiyue looked around and suddenly understood something. The people who had previously smeared their blood on the two Tian baby and established a connection with it had all fallen into this strange state. However, the key point was that she hadn't controlled the two Tian baby to do such a thing. Moreover, she had only noticed that the two Tian baby's strength was constantly increasing. However, that strength hadn't entered her body at all. However, the crowd didn't know this. They only knew that Chu Luiyue was the owner of the two Tian baby. Now that the two Tian baby had a problem, it would be difficult for her to clear her suspicion, especially when they had connected themselves with the two Tian baby in front of the palace for their own safety. This had allowed the two Tian baby to devour the strength in their bodies at any time and place. Previously, the two Tian baby had only devoured the excess energy of heaven and earth. However, its target had now become the original force in their bodies. Some people recalled what Nye Hongjie had said. Now that they thought about it, could his suspicion of Chu Luiyue really become a reality? I don't know what's going on either. Chu Luiyue quickly reacted. She frowned slightly and denied the crowd's guess. However, this sentence was a little weak, because the two Tian baby was hers. The crowd fell into silence and the space seemed to have frozen. Everyone looked at Chu Luiyue with complicated expressions. If it weren't for the fact that Chu Luiyue had just become a supreme god and had no reason to do this, they would have already surrounded her and interrogated her. "Give it to me," Rong Xiu suddenly said. Chu Luiyue looked up and handed over the two Tian baby. Rong Xiu held the two Tian baby in his hand. His gaze was slightly focused and his eyes were deep. "Do you see anything?" Chu Luiyue asked. Everyone turned to look at him. Obviously, they were also waiting for Rong Xiu's answer. Rong Xiu didn't say anything. His eyes were still fixed on the two Tian baby. In just a short while, it had already devoured a lot of energy. As time passed, the black line on the stem and leaves continued to spread. A golden flame suddenly gushed out of his fingertip. The blazing heat caused the two Tian baby's leaves to curl up slightly. The black line also began to shrink toward the roots. Chu Luiyue stared intently and held her breath. As the flame burned, a faint charred smell spread. There was also a faint smell of blood. Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed even tighter. The two Tian baby was not an ordinary thing. It could borrow the power of heaven and earth to grow. Moreover, it was pure yang and had an extremely vigorous vitality. It was absolutely impossible for Rong Xiu's flame to burn it. Then this smell must have come from that strange black line. "Get out here!" Rong Xiu suddenly shouted. The golden flame suddenly exploded. In the crowd, someone's chest suddenly trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Rong Xiu looked up and flicked his wrist. A golden line flew out and instantly wrapped around the person and dragged him over. It was a man who looked to be in his 30s. His appearance was ordinary and his body was a little plump. No one would notice him in a crowd. The only thing worth noting was that he was a venerable god expert. Lin Jiang? A few people suddenly became nervous. Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Someone from the Mahayana sect? Although she did not know this Lin Jiang, she remembered that he was an elder of the Mahayana sect. The few people who were nervous were also from the Mahayana sect. Looking at them, it seemed that they did not know what was going on. "He's not Lin Jiang," Rong Xiu said coldly. With a flick of his fingertip, the golden line instantly cut off half of Lin Jiang's face. They were both venerable gods, but Lin Jiang could not fight back at all in front of Rong Xiu. After this half of his face was cut off, everyone was shocked to find that he was wearing a mask. After the mask was removed by Rong Xiu, half of his face was destroyed. However, the remaining half of his face was very unfamiliar to everyone. "He's really not Lin Jiang." Seeing that his identity was exposed, a ruthless look flashed in the man's eyes. A violent aura suddenly spread from his body. Chu Luiyue's eyes sharpened. He stole the two Tian baby's power. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2143. The two Tian baby was Chu Luiyue's. Ever since she took it out to help everyone disperse the heaven and earth energy that was forcibly entering their bodies, the two Tian baby had established a subtle connection with these people. From a certain point of view, it was as if there were invisible threads connecting them together. This person was also one of them. It was unknown what method he used to steal the two Tian baby's devouring power and control it to continue devouring the origin force in everyone's bodies. In other words, it was equivalent to cutting off the connection between Chu Luiyue and the two Tian baby's power. Therefore, when Shi Ruier and the others discovered that something was wrong, Chu Luiyue's side didn't have the slightest reaction. Chu Luiyue's mind raced. The truth wasn't difficult to guess, but the key was, how did he do it? Seeing that the man suddenly tore through space to escape, Rong Xiu suddenly raised his hand, and a golden light flashed out, forcibly sealing the space crack in an instant. A tyrannical force swept towards the man, forming a cage in the blink of an eye, trapping him inside. A trace of panic appeared on the man's face. He had long heard of Rong Xiu's methods. If he really fell into his hands, he was afraid that he would suffer a fate worse than death. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes, and then he began to devour the two Tian baby's power even more crazily. Rong Xiu lowered his eyes, and the black line on the two Tian baby actually spread out again. It was even faster than before. The attack just now could have completely finished it off, but the two Tian baby had an extremely vigorous vitality. This man had implanted his own power into it, and with the help of the two Tian baby, he was able to dodge Rong Xiu's attack. If Rong Xiu wanted to completely destroy it, the two Tian baby would also suffer a calamity. He's still stealing our power. Shi Rui anxiously shouted. The others' expressions weren't good either. Chu Luiyue looked at the two Tian baby in Rong Xiu's hand. The black lines had already spread to the veins of the tender leaves. Sheng Guanyu, this two Tian baby is already under my control. If you want to keep it, you better let me go immediately. Otherwise, these people here will definitely die before me. The man knew that the matter had been exposed, and any further concealment and deception would be useless, so he decided to speak frankly. Half of his face had been sliced off, and his flesh was badly mangled, making him look even more sinister and terrifying. Chu Luiyue placed his hand on Rong Xiu's wrist so he calmed down first. Then he turned around and looked coldly at the man. You do have some skills. This move of his had deceived even her. It was indeed impressive. Who sent you? She asked coldly. The man thought that she was going to compromise. He didn't expect her to suddenly ask such a question. His heart skipped a beat. What nonsense are you talking about? No one sent me. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly, but there was no smile in his eyes. So, it's also a coincidence that you pretended to be Lin Jiang and followed the people from the Mahayana sect to the Red Moon Desert? The people from the Mahayana sect immediately said, Master Yu, we immediately rushed over when we sensed that a new gate realm had opened. This person couldn't have pretended to be Lin Jiang at the last minute. He must have replaced him long ago. Why would a person pretend to be someone else all of a sudden? He obviously had a plan. Later, he followed the people from the Mahayana sect here and even attacked the two Tian baby. No one would believe that it was a coincidence. After being exposed, the man's eyes flashed with a trace of panic. However, he still attacked Chu Luiyue. Sheng Guanyu, don't say so many useless things. I'll count to 3 and you'll let me go immediately. Otherwise, I'll make these people die with me first. When the time comes, their deaths will all be on your head. Don't forget who took out the two Tian baby and put their lives on the line. He shouted hysterically as if he had gone mad. It was as if he wanted to drag everyone down with him. Anyone who was forced to a dead end was capable of doing anything. Everyone fell silent and looked at Chu Luiyue. Rationally, they knew that this matter couldn't be blamed on Chu Luiyue. In the beginning, she took out the two Tian baby to help them. Moreover, she had successfully become a supreme god without the help of anyone else. Naturally, there was no need for her to do anything to them. However, on the other hand, she was the owner of the two Tian baby. If something like this happened, she couldn't get away with it. Chu Luiyue looked at him. If that's the case, then you're really confident in yourself. 1. That man ignored Chu Luiyue's words and started counting on his own. 2. Chu Luiyue crossed her arms. Her expression was calm and indifferent, and there was a hint of sarcasm in the corner of her eyes. Her reaction only made the man even angrier. Sheng Guanyu, are you really not afraid? Chu Luiyue raised her chin. Why aren't you counting? Keep counting, I'm listening. The man was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect Chu Luiyue to be so arrogant. Did she really not care about the lives of these people? Even if she was the owner of you, even if she had Rong Xiu and the others behind her, she definitely couldn't bear the death of so many people. One had to know that these people were all of high status. It was fine if 1 or 2 of them died, but if too many of them died. When the time came for everyone to crusade against her, how could she stay out of it? The man stared at Chu Luiyue, trying to find some clues from her face. However, Chu Luiyue only had a faint smile on her face. Other than that, he couldn't see anything. The man hesitated for a moment, then finally shouted. 3. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly closed his eyes, intending to self-destruct. The surrounding people also tensed up and held their breaths. However, after waiting for a while, nothing happened. The man opened his eyes in surprise, only to find that everything didn't go as he expected. What's going on? He had clearly made sufficient preparations before this. Once he took action, none of the people present would be able to escape. At this moment, he was shocked to find that the power of the two Tian baby suddenly stopped surging towards him. This was even more wrong. He had attacked the heaven-wrecking holy seed when everyone came in contact with it. At this time, his power was deeply buried in the heaven-wrecking holy seed. If something happened to him, the heaven-wrecking holy seed would definitely suffer. How? Didn't you want to drag everyone down with you? Chu Liwei crossed her arms and looked at him lazily. Why did you stop? The man was enraged. Just as he was about to continue, a look of deep shock flashed across his face. Chu Liwei raised her hand. An identical two Tian baby was swaying in the wind. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. I don't only have one two Tian baby. I have a pair of twins. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2144. Everyone was stunned on the spot. A two Tian baby was extremely rare. It was already very rare to have one. No one would have thought that Chu Liwei actually had a pair. Looking at the two identical two Tian babies in Chu Liwei and Rong Xiu's hands, everyone was shocked speechless for a moment. The man's face instantly turned pale. He only controlled one two Tian baby. He originally thought that he could successfully complete his goal by taking control of it from Chu Liwei. Who would have thought that Chu Liwei had such a trick up her sleeve? The man hurriedly tried again. Only then did he realize that not only was he unable to continue using the heaven-wrecking holy seed to devour energy, but the origin power in his body began to flow uncontrollably towards another undamaged heaven-wrecking holy seed. The power in his body began to flow away at an alarming rate. This time he finally panicked. At this moment he finally realized that no matter what method he used to forcibly control the two Tian baby, it was obviously impossible to defeat its twin. Chu Liwei looked down at the two Tian baby in her hand. In fact, she had never deliberately hidden the fact that she had two Tian babies. But every time she encountered a situation, she would take out one and that would be enough. These two were twins and they were closely connected to each other. The power could be transferred back and forth between the two at will. So she didn't care about this and just took out one at a time. She didn't expect that this time she would accidentally solve a problem that was neither too big nor too small. Chu Liwei gently shook the two Tian baby in her hand. Whoosh! The power that was taken back from the man poured into it, and then with the swaying of the buds, it returned to everyone's bodies. This process was extremely fierce and domineering. The man didn't even have time to dodge before half of the power in his body was taken away. His face was pale and his eyes were full of panic. The arrogance from before had completely disappeared at this time. He crazily urged the remaining power, desperately hitting the cage around him. However, if Rong Xiu could suppress and seal that how could he? In this way the energy in his body was being depleted even faster. Rong Xiu's eyes flickered and golden flames burned on his fingertips. A bloody wound also appeared on the man's body. The golden cage gradually tightened and began to compress the space around it. The man gradually gave up struggling. Intense pain came from all over his body, making him wish he was dead. Chu Liwei looked at Shi Ruo'er. Are you okay now? She was asking about the power that had been stolen from them. Shi Ruo'er immediately nodded. It's all done. There seemed to be a little more. Chu Liwei chuckled. Although this Lin Zhang's identity is fake, this god's strength is real. Even if it was chopped up, everyone would still be able to get a small share. Take it as compensation for everyone. After all, this was my oversight. Everyone fell silent. Even Shi Ruo'er could not help but twitch the corner of her mouth. Hearing this, it really is, she looked at the man trapped in the cage with some sympathy. Of all the people to offend, why did he have to offend Chu Liwei? He must be tired of living if he dared to provoke the Almighty. Chu Liwei stepped forward, stared at the man and asked, I'll ask you again. I'll ask you again who sent you. At the same time, Cliff Peak. This was the mountain behind the Family Yi. It was also a forbidden area for Family Yi. Very few people came here. At this moment, a tall figure stood on the peak with his hands behind his back. It was Jun Jiuqing. In front of him was a surging black-green river. Behind him stood a middle-aged man, the head of family Wei Zhe. Both of them were silent. Wei Zhe looked up at Jun Jiuqing from time to time with a conflicted expression. He had been here for almost an hour, but Jun Jiuqing had not said a word. He did not even turn his head. If it were anyone else he would not have been so polite. After all, his family Wei was a first-rate family in the Divine Ruins world. He was also the head of the family. In terms of status he was not inferior to anyone. But in front of Jun Jiuqing, his arrogance was toned down quite a bit. On one hand it was because the family Yi's status was higher than the family Wei's. Although the family Yi had been in a lot of trouble recently, A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The family Yi was still not to be underestimated. On the other hand, Jun Jiuqing easily pulled down Yi Wentao and quickly took control of the family Yi. This was enough to prove his scheming. On the other hand, it was because he still owed Jun Jiuqing a favor. Head of the family Yi, about my son? Unable to wait any longer, Wei Zhe opened his mouth. However, before he could finish, Jun Jiuqing raised his hand and motioned for him to be quiet. Wei Zhe could only swallow the rest of his words. Screech. A screech came from afar. Wei Zhe looked up and saw a demonic beast that looked like an eagle or a vulture flying toward them. The demonic beast spread its wings. Its body was strong and muscular, and its speed was extremely fast. Wherever it passed, a long black spatial crack appeared in the sky. Jun Jiuqing raised his hand. The demonic beast flew in front of him and firmly grabbed his arm. Wei Zhe took a closer look. Half-folded divine vulture. This was a divine beast. However, it was extremely fierce and aggressive. Every time it defeated an opponent, it would eat the corpse of its opponent. It was an extremely vicious existence. Jun Jiuqing glanced at it. His demonic eyebrows relaxed and he seemed to smile. Did you enjoy eating it? Screech. The half-folded divine vulture screeched and flapped its wings. It was obviously still excited. This was Jun Jiuqing's new pet. The one he used to have died under the claws of this half-folded divine vulture some time ago, so he decided to keep it. As expected, it was more to his liking. The half-folded divine vulture turned its head and glanced at Wei Zhe. That gaze was fierce and vicious, with undisguised exploration and greed. It was as if he was treating Wei Zhe as his own food. Wei Zhe suddenly felt a strong sense of discomfort. He knew that this divine beast was extraordinary. However, such an invasive gaze still made him shudder. Was very. Jun Jiuqing finally turned around and glanced at Wei Zhe with a half-smile. Head of the family Yi, it seems to like you very much. Wei Zhe's back was covered in cold sweat. This did not sound like a good thing. However, he still forced a smile and cupped his hands. Head of the family Yi's divine beast is naturally extraordinary. Jun Jiuqing smiled. As he combed the half-folded divine vulture's feathers, he asked, "What did you say about your son?" They finally got to the point. Wei Zhe hurriedly said, "It's a long story. It's about the last time in the stone forest. In order to compete with Shangguan Yu for first place, he suffered serious injuries. Now he is barely hanging on and has not recovered. Head of the family Yi, do you have any way to help him?" Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2145. Jun Jiuqing glanced at him calmly. "How would you like me to help, Mr. Family Wei?" Wei Zhe paused and said hesitantly, "Shiping has been trapped in that stone for a long time." Shiping has been in the hammer for a long time. I wonder if Master Yi could release him and help him reconstruct his body? Jun Jiuqing did not say anything. However, the air around them seemed to have frozen. Even the temperature had dropped to the freezing point. Wei Zhe's heart skipped a beat. After a long while, Jun Jiuqing asked slowly, "What are you talking about?" "Mr. Family Wei, you seem to have forgotten that Wei Shiping was the one who wanted to go in. No one forced him. Now, he's thinking of coming out before he's done?" "Mr. Family Yi, please don't misunderstand." Wei Zhe was worried that he would lose his temper, so he quickly explained. "I'm just saying. It's fine if Mr. Family Yi doesn't want to. I just feel that he's been trapped in there for a long time. He's really hurt this time. Did he think of this himself, or is it Mr. Family Yi's idea?" "It's me. It's just what I think. He doesn't know that I'm here," Wei Zhe quickly said. Jun Jiuqing lowered his eyes. "It seems that he's much smarter than you." Wei Zhe did not dare to continue. Jun Jiuqing's meaning was clear. He took a deep breath and tried to salvage the situation. "This has nothing to do with him. As his father, I can't bear to see him trapped and tortured all day. But other than that, I have no other intentions." Jun Jiuqing seemed to laugh. "It's normal for Family Yi to feel sorry for his son. Don't worry, I'll release him when the time is right." Wei Zhe finally felt relieved when he heard that. "Thank you, Mr. Family Yi." Right at this moment, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the distant horizon. Jun Jiuqing looked up and narrowed his eyes. The fluctuation came from the newly opened gate realm. It seemed that the matter there had come to an end. He asked casually, "Mr. Family Yi, you didn't send anyone from Family Yi, did you?" Wei Zhe's heart skipped a beat. He quickly said, "No. Previously, Patriarch Yi sent us a message, telling us not to get involved in this matter, and we did as we were told." Jun Jiuqing suddenly stared at him, his gaze as sharp as a knife. "Really?" "Of course. Wei Zhe's expression was firm. Patriarchy, as you know, our Wei family has been in a lot of trouble recently. We can't even take care of ourselves. How would we have the time and energy to care about these things? Jun Jiuqing suddenly said. Wei Zhe, do you know the price you have to pay for lying to me? Wei Zhe's heart sank and his eyelids twitched. I don't know what Mr. Family E means, Jun Jiuqing smiled coldly. He was sure of what he was thinking. You still sent someone. It was not a question but a statement. Wei Zhe instinctively wanted to defend himself, but when he met Jun Jiuqing's eyes, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. His lips trembled and he finally said, that person, he sneaked into the Mahayana sect before. I didn't send him there on purpose. The first-rate families and clans in the Divine Ruins world had a very subtle relationship with each other. It was not rare to secretly plant connections and keep people in the other party. Wei Zhe was no exception. This reason sounded very reasonable. However, Jun Jiuqing did not think so. He looked at Wei Zhe coldly, full of pressure. After the door realm opened, the Mahayana sect was not the first to rush over. During this time, it was enough for you to contact them and order them not to go. Wei Zhe, do you dare say that you didn't do it on purpose? Wei Zhe's face turned pale and his legs went weak. He was clearly much older than Jun Jiuqing, but for some reason when facing Jun Jiuqing he always felt that he was the inferior one. At this time, Jun Jiuqing's few questions made him feel a little afraid. Wei Zhe opened his mouth. But I really didn't do it on purpose. These words sounded extremely guilty and even he couldn't convince himself. In fact, after the new door realm opened, he was also very excited and wanted to personally lead a group of people to check it out. Who knew that before he could set off, he would receive Jun Jiuqing's order? How could he accept it? With such a great opportunity before him, no matter what, he was unwilling to miss it. Fortunately, he had already left someone in the Mahayana sect. He secretly sent a message to that person and told him to act according to the circumstances. Because he guessed that Rong Xiu and the others would also go, he specially kept an eye on them. If there was a chance he would make a move on those two. Of course, Wei Zhe wanted revenge. And this would be an extremely rare opportunity. However, seeing Jun Jiuqing's reaction, Wei Zhe was a little confused. Didn't he just send someone over? And it was so seamless. Even if Jun Jiuqing was angry because he did not fully follow his orders, there was no need for such a strong reaction, right? Why did it seem like he had committed an unpardonable crime? Family E, that person has been in the Mahayana sect for a long time, and he's smart and alert. Nothing will happen to him, Jun Jiuqing sneered. Wei Zhe, remember this. Your son's life was destroyed by your own hands. With that, he closed his eyes. Get lost. Wei Zhe did not expect to be scolded by Jun Jiuqing like this. His face turned red and white. Jun Jiuqing, don't go over dash bang. Before he could finish, the half-folded divine vulture suddenly charged at him. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2146. Wei Zhe was shocked and immediately retreated. However, the half-folded vulture was even faster than him. In the blink of an eye, it had already flown in front of Wei Zhe, and its sharp beak was about to bite Wei Zhe's face. Wei Zhe waved his sleeves, intending to set up a barrier in front of him. However, before he could do so, he felt a tearing pain on his arm. He quickly retreated and looked down. To his shock and anger, he realized that a piece of flesh had been torn off his arm. It was a ghastly sight to behold. This bastard, he looked up and his pupils constricted. He saw that the half-folded vulture had swallowed that piece of flesh into its stomach. Those cold and sinister eyes were also staring at him, as if they were glowing with a greedy and excited green light. Is it really treating me as food? Screech. It raised its head and screeched. Its wings flapped as if it was about to continue charging over. At that moment, Jun Jiuqing suddenly raised his hand. The half-folded vulture retracted its aura, but its bloodthirsty eyes were still fixed on Wei Zhe. It was as if Jun Jiuqing let go, it would immediately rush over to tear Wei Zhe to pieces and eat him. Family Wei, this is just a warning. Some things can be said and some things can't be said. Some things can be done and some things can't be done. I don't think you need me to teach you this principle, right? Jun Jiuqing said slowly. Wei Zhe's heart was beating wildly. He knew very well that this was Family E. If Jun Jiuqing really wanted his life, he definitely wouldn't have the chance to leave alive. He gritted his teeth. There seemed to be flames burning in his chest as if they were about to burst out of his chest. However, in the end he still chose to compromise. I know. With that he quickly turned and left. After his figure completely disappeared, Jun Jiuqing looked at the half-folded vulture on his arm. He narrowed his eyes and a trace of displeasure flashed across his eyes. Don't you find it dirty? The half-broken divine vulture, which had been extremely arrogant just a moment ago, immediately shrunk its head. It was obvious that it was extremely afraid of him. Fortunately, Jun Jiuqing did not continue to scold it. Men. As soon as he finished speaking, a black figure walked out of the void. Patriarch. Jun Jiuqing tidied the feathers of the half-folded divine vulture and said calmly, "Take care of those who were sent to contact the family Wei." Yes. As for family Wei, I just need to protect Wei Zhe and Wei Shiping. This subordinate obeys. Jun Jiuqing waved his hand and the black shadow quickly disappeared. Silence returned to the cliffs. He looked towards the horizon and saw that the fluctuations on the Dao Gate realm had gradually disappeared. Looks like it's already over, he said slowly and softly. This was the first time Chu Luiyue had passed through the newly opened Gate realm. After entering the Divine Ruins realm, she turned back to take a look. This Dao Gate realm was not much different from the Gate realm she had seen before. It was just that no one was guarding it until now. The competition for the ownership of any Gate realm was very intense. After all, to a large extent, it represented a certain identity and strength. Rong Xiu looked at her. What? Have you taken a liking to this Dao Gate realm? Chu Luiyue did not beat around the bush. She nodded and admitted it. If I'm not wrong, this should be the Gate realm opened by De Bao. If I can control it, it will be much easier to contact them in the future. She looked around and smiled. This Gate realm is very important to me. I wonder if all of you can let me through this time? Yao Bin cupped his fists and said, "You're too kind, Master Yu. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to escape. This Dao Gate realm should be yours in the first place. There's no need for you to let us through." That's right. When a new Gate realm appears, it needs a new master. There's no one more suitable than you here. Shi Rui also nodded in agreement. Regarding this matter, everyone had a tacit understanding. They were not in a position to compete with Chu Luiyue. Besides, even if they really wanted to compete, they might not be able to win. In the end, they would not have a good reputation. They might as well withdraw from this competition. Chu Luiyue's smile deepened. Thank you, all of you. After pausing for a moment, she said, "Since this matter is over, we'll go back first. I wish all of you a smooth journey." After bidding farewell, everyone finally left. Chu Luiyue looked at Cini. "Cini, stay here first. I'll leave this Dao Gate realm to you for the time being." Yes. Chu Luiyue cupped her fists towards Mao Zhen and Yi Zhao. "Seniors, I still have to thank you for this." Mao Zhen waved her hand. "What are you thanking us for? Actually, we didn't help much. In the end, you and Rong Xiu contributed the most." Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly, but her expression was incomparably sincere. "Originally, the two of you didn't have to make this trip. I still have to thank the two of you. Traveling thousands of miles to save her. This kind of intention was always very precious. Moreover, after this, everyone in the Divine Ruins world would definitely place the Great Void Phoenix Dragon and the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan on their side. These two ancient divine beasts had rarely interfered with the affairs of the human race. However, after this, they would definitely be implicated." Yi Zhao suddenly said, "Dumpling is the young mistress of our clan. This matter concerns her life and death. Our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan naturally can't stay out of it." Chu Luiyue looked at him and sighed softly in her heart. Yi Zhao really doted on Dumpling to the core. Thinking back to when they first went to the Divine Phoenix Mountain, they were ruthlessly threatened. Why would they think of today? Yi Zhao seemed to value Dumpling's life more than his own. Although he was a man of few words and a cold face, his feelings for Dumpling could not be more sincere and passionate. That's right. Although Ziqin isn't of the Great Void Phoenix Dragon clan, he still has half of our bloodline in him. Moreover, you've helped me before. This small favor is nothing." Mao Zhen said with a smile. Chu Luiyue thanked her again. "Then, we'll return to Peach Blossom Cove first." Yi Zhao said, "I'll go with you." He paused and frowned slightly. "I can only be at ease after I personally ensure Dumpling's safety." Chu Luiyue knew that he was talking about Dumpling's forceful opening of her sixth meridian. Her expression turned serious and she nodded slightly. "Please?" Peach Blossom Cove. Chu Luiyue and the others returned to the Yu residence in a rather low-key manner. After entering the room, Chu Luiyue first summoned Dumpling. After a period of recuperation, her condition was better than before. Some of the less serious injuries had mostly healed, but Chu Luiyue knew that these weren't the most serious problems in her body. "Yu." Dumpling ran toward Chu Luiyue the moment she came out. She hugged her leg and looked up at her. Ayu, how is Zichen? Wonderful book house. Chapter 2147. Her chubby little face had lost a lot of weight after this ordeal. It was a heart-wrenching sight. At this moment she was looking up with worry in her eyes. Chu Liwei picked her up and gently rubbed her face against his. Dumpling, don't worry. Zichen will be fine. Tuanzi held her neck with both hands, and her small eyebrows were still tightly knitted. But he's seriously injured, Chu Liwei sighed in her heart. Dumpling was very smart. Such vague words wouldn't comfort her at all. She kissed Dumpling and patiently comforted her. Dumpling, don't worry. Now that we're back, he'll be fine as long as he recuperates. Don't you trust Ayu? Tuanzi shook her head and leaned against her shoulder, murmuring softly. Dumpling trusts Ayu the most. Chu Liyue's heart softened. She said to Yi Zhao, who was beside her, then let's go to Grandpa clan leader's side and wait together, okay? Dumpling knew that she was going to treat Zichen's injuries, so she nodded obediently. Okay. Rong Xiu was standing at the side. When he saw this scene, he seemed to have thought of something. A light flashed across his eyes, and his expression softened a little. Chu Liyue didn't notice. She turned around and handed Dumpling to Yi Zhao. Yi Zhao's usually cold expression instantly changed. He coughed and carefully reached out to hold Dumpling in his arms. Although Dumpling had already opened her 6th meridian, she was still a soft ball in his arms. He looked down and saw the dried dark red blood on Dumpling's body. Anger and killing intent surged in his heart. But he was afraid that he would scare Dumpling, so he suppressed it. Killing Nye Hongjie and his daughter was still not enough to vent his anger. If he had the chance in the future, he would definitely ferret out the person behind this and make him pay for Dumpling's suffering 1,000 times over. Suddenly, a soft little hand touched the space between his eyebrows. Grandpa clan leader, don't be angry. Isn't Dumpling fine? Although Yi Zhao didn't say anything, she knew that his heart ached for her and he was angry about what had happened. Yi Zhao's heart instantly softened. He grabbed Dumpling's hand and nodded. Okay. I'll listen to Dumpling's instructions. At this moment, Chu Liyue summoned Zichen with a thought. Zichen's situation seemed to be very bad. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was covered in bruises. Even though Chu Liyue had tried her best to heal him previously, his injuries were really too serious. Especially the bone-piercing wounds. As a divine beast, Zichen possessed half of the great phoenix dragon's bloodline. Logically speaking, his physical strength should be extremely strong. Even if he fought against a god, he wouldn't necessarily be seriously injured. From this, it could be seen that his opponent was extremely strong and had dealt him a heavy blow. Chu Liyue suppressed the surging emotions in her heart. A dagger appeared in her hand. She raised her foot and walked over. She cut open the clothes on Zichen's shoulder, revealing the wound that had pierced through the bone. A bloody hole the size of a bowl was laid bare in front of her eyes. Chu Liyue's heart trembled. In fact, over the years she had seen more gruesome scenes than this. But now this wound was on Zichen's body. She couldn't help but feel angry and distressed. Zichen's wrists also had the same wound. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and asked, "Is this a wound from when you tried to break free from that thing's restraint?" Zichen's handsome and cold face was pale. He nodded. Although his voice was weak, his tone was as calm and deep as ever. "I wasn't strong enough, so I could only resort to this method." He tried to break the chain, but after trying many methods he failed. In the end he could only resort to this method. Chu Liyue's chest tightened. "I was too careless. I shouldn't have let you leave at that time." Later, whenever she thought about it, she felt that if she had been more vigilant at that time and hadn't let Dumpling and Zichen go out, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. Zichen shook his head. "Shueshue was with us at that time. But its target was us, it's not." Dumpling suddenly spoke. Her eyes were red. "I know. It's me." She sounded like she was about to cry. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't pestered Zichen to fight at that time, he wouldn't have been implicated by me." As she spoke, she finally couldn't hold it in anymore. Bean-sized tears streamed down her face. Hot tears fell on Yi Zhao's hand, making his heart ache. Dumpling, Dumpling, don't cry." He had never seen such a scene before. For a moment he was also at a loss. Chu Liyue frowned. "Dumpling, it's not your fault. To be honest, the real target of that was actually her. As for Tuanzi, she should be the next best target for it to attack." Dumpling's eyes were red with tears. When she saw the wound on Zichen's hand and shoulder, she cried even harder. "It's me. Zichen was fine. He was injured because he tried to save me. It's all my fault." She had been in a tense state before, so she didn't think too much about it. Now that she had finally returned safely, and when she saw Zichen's injury, she recalled the scene at that time. She was overwhelmed with guilt and self-blame. Zichen. I'm sorry, Dumpling cried until she was out of breath. It was as if she wanted to vent all the fear, grievances, and pain during this period of time. Her little body twitched as she cried. Yi Zhao was so distressed that he didn't know what to do. He just happened to look at Chu Luiyue for help. Don't cry. Zichen suddenly spoke. His face was as cold and indifferent as usual, but his tone had a rare gentleness and patience. Dumpling suddenly jumped down from Yi Zhao's arms and ran to Zichen. Zichen, why don't you hit me? Dumpling wiped her tears as she spoke, but she couldn't wipe them away. Seeing the bloody holes on Zichen's wrist and shoulder, she felt even worse. If you didn't want to save me, you wouldn't have been injured at all. It has nothing to do with you. When it locked me up, it had already pierced my wrist with the chain. Zichen shook his head. But it's okay. His gaze fell on Dumpling's wrist. Perhaps in order to help Dumpling open her meridians, the other party didn't use this method to deal with Dumpling. Instead, it just shackled her wrists. Fortunately, his wrist was pierced, leaving him a chance to escape. Fortunately, it wasn't her. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2148. Chu Luiyue looked at Dumpling. Dumpling stepped back. I'm going to take a look at Zichen's wound. Tuanzi pursed her lips and moved her little feet reluctantly, but her two little hands were still holding the edge of the bed. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dumpling was crying so miserably. She was probably really upset about what had happened. As long as Zichen didn't recover, she wouldn't be able to relax. Chu Luiyue stopped urging her and looked at Zichen. It might hurt a little later. Bear with it. Zichen looked away from Dumpling's face and nodded. Chu Luiyue looked at his left shoulder, and her expression became more serious. A flame of pure gold and transparent karmic fire suddenly gushed out of her palm. The blazing heat caused the temperature of the entire room to rise by quite a bit. Then her palm slowly approached the wound on Zichen's left shoulder. Under the heat of the flame, the dried blood gradually evaporated, revealing Zichen's original bloody wound. Chu Luiyue placed the dagger in her other hand on the flame. This dagger was the same one that Rongxiu had given her. It was as thin as a cicada's wing and extremely sharp. Unlike an ordinary dagger, this dagger did not become as red as a soldering iron after being roasted in the fire. Instead, it still had its previous bright and clear appearance. A moment later, Chu Luiyue held the dagger in her hand and cut Zichen's shoulder. His shoulder bone had been pierced. There were still some bone fragments inside which had to be removed. Some of the flesh around the wound had already died and had to be removed as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue was about to move when she suddenly noticed that Zichen was looking at Dumpling. Turn around. This was for Dumpling. Dumpling immediately said, No. It wasn't like she hadn't seen such a scene before. Besides, Zichen was injured because of her. What was wrong with her watching? Zichen frowned. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. As if sensing her smile, Zichen paused and lowered his eyes. After a while, he seemed to be explaining something. She's still young. Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement. That's right. Compared to Zichen, who had lived for thousands of years, Dumpling was indeed young. Although she had been with Dumpling for many years and had even experienced life and death situations, this scene would still scare Dumpling. Zichen was Chu Luiyue's contracted mythological beast, so he immediately knew what she was thinking. He wanted to explain himself, but in the end he gave up and closed his eyes. Let's begin. Chu Luiyue smiled in her heart, but she still turned her body to block Dumpling's view. Hey! Dumpling originally wanted to watch carefully, but Chu Luiyue blocked her view so she couldn't see anything. She wanted to change her position, but she was worried that moving would disturb Chu Luiyue, so she could only stay where she was and wait with her neck raised. Fortunately, Chu Luiyue was very fast and straightforward. In a short while, she finished treating the wound on Zichen's left shoulder. She took out 2 jade bottles from her universe ring. One bottle contained powdered wound medicine, and the other bottle contained oral spirit refreshment pills. She first fed Zichen a spirit refreshment pill, and then began to apply the medicine. When the medicine was sprinkled on the wound, Zichen's lips turned pale, and his body instantly tensed up. Chu Luiyue refined the medicine herself. It was very effective, but it was very painful. She sped up her movements. After applying the medicine, she began to bandage Zichen's wound. After treating the wound on his shoulder, she moved on to his wrists. Fortunately, the wound on his wrists was lighter than the one on his shoulder. Even so, after everything was done, Zichen's clothes were almost soaked. Obviously it was painful. Chu Luiyue handed over the 2 bottles in her hand and put them on the bedside. Change the medicine on your body once a day, and take 1 spirit refreshment pill every 2 days. You should be almost healed in 10 days. During this time you just lie here and recuperate. Zichen said, it won't take that long. Chu Luiyue put her hand to her forehead helplessly. Zichen's temperament had always been like this. He definitely wouldn't want to lie here all day like a patient. Although he was a patient to begin with. She turned her head and glanced at Dumpling. Dumpling, I'll leave Zichen to you. Yes. After receiving this task, Dumpling immediately nodded her head vigorously. Ayu, don't worry. I'll definitely take good care of Zichen. She was already very guilty and blamed herself for Zichen's injury. Now that she had a chance to make up for it, she was naturally very happy. No matter what, she had to seize the opportunity. Zichen raised his eyebrows and looked at Chu Luiyue. I don't need, it's settled. Chu Luiyue didn't leave any room for discussion for Zichen and immediately finalized the matter. Then, she waved at Dumpling, who had run to the bedside and was carefully studying the 2 bottles of medicine. Dumpling, come here first. You can come later. Okay. Dumpling didn't suspect anything and obediently followed over. Chu Luiyue carried her and walked out of the door. Yizhao and Rong Xiu also followed along. The group arrived at another room in the courtyard. After entering, Chu Luiyue placed Dumpling on the bed. Dumpling looked at her blankly. Ayu. Dumpling, don't worry. Grandpa Patriarch and I are just here to check on your body after you opened your 6th meridian. When she heard this, Dumpling immediately nodded obediently and stretched out her small hand. Ayu, don't worry. I'm fine. Chu Luiyue sat by the bed and held her small hand to check her pulse. She separated a portion of her force and circulated it through Dumpling's meridians. After a moment, she withdrew her hand. Her expression didn't reveal anything. Senior Yizhao, come and take a look. She stood up and gave her seat to Yizhao. Yizhao walked over. The method he used was slightly different from Chu Luiyue's. A cluster of reddish gold flames surged out from his fingertips and slowly seeped into Dumpling's body. Chu Luiyue could even clearly see the state of the flame flowing under Dumpling's skin. However, Dumpling's expression was normal. She even laughed a few times because she felt itchy. About a quarter of an hour later, Yi Zhao withdrew the ball of flame. Chu Luiyue exchanged glances with him and asked, Senior Yi Zhao, what do you think? Yi Zhao's eyes darkened. Dumpling's current condition is still all right. She's basically not injured. However, the forceful opening of her meridians previously caused a huge impact to her meridians. I'm afraid that she'll need to rest for a period of time. Chu Luiyue nodded. My thoughts are the same as yours. However, it's a good thing that Dumpling's bloodline is pure. With enough time, these injuries can be healed. Dumpling looked up at them. Grandpa Patriarch, Ayu, does this mean that Dumpling's fine? The two exchanged glances. They could see the worry in each other's eyes. Dumpling's body was fine, but this was the problem. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2149. Did that I kidnap Dumpling just to help her open her meridians? But with Dumpling's aptitude, it was only a matter of time before she opened her 6th meridian. Why was that thing in such a hurry? The slightest carelessness would only destroy Dumpling's talent. What was it trying to do? Chu Luiyue stroked Dumpling's round hair and smiled warmly. Yes. Fortunately, our Dumpling is powerful. Zichen is powerful. Dumpling corrected. If not for him, my 7th meridian would have already been opened. Chu Luiyue's heart sank. Yi Zhao's face was also covered in a layer of haze. Fortunately, they had rushed over in time. Fortunately, Dumpling had come to her senses early. Because of the life contract, Dumpling had also benefited greatly from Chu Luiyue's breakthrough to the Supreme God level. To a large extent, it had mitigated the effects of forcefully opening her meridians. If her 7th meridian had been forcefully opened, the damage to her body would have been irreversible. Yi Zhao asked a few more questions about what had happened that day. Dumpling told him everything in detail. Grandpa Patriarch, Ayu, since I'm fine now, shall I go take care of Zichen? Dumpling threw herself onto Chu Luiyue's lap and asked with her head raised. Chu Luiyue gently rubbed Dumpling's little face. Okay. Dumpling left happily. After she left, the room fell into a brief silence. After a moment, Yi Zhao spoke. We still have to continue investigating this matter. Chu Luiyue nodded. Senior Yi Zhao, don't worry. I've already ordered the 13U to secretly search for information. Once we find anything, we'll inform you immediately. Yi Zhao said in a low voice, You probably don't have enough manpower. I'll immediately set off and rush back to Phoenix Mountain to mobilize everyone in the clan to investigate. No matter what, we have to find that thing. Chu Luiyue was surprised at first, but soon understood what he was thinking. Although Yi Zhao did not like to interact with humans, this matter involved Dumpling. He had always doted on Dumpling. This time Dumpling had suffered so much. How could he let it go? He was planning to mobilize the power of the entire tribe to avenge Dumpling. Chu Luiyue cupped his fists and bowed solemnly. Thank you, Senior Yi Zhao. Yi Zhao's expression was as cold as ever. Dumpling is the young mistress of our clan, so this is what we should do. With that, he hurriedly took his leave. Chu Luiyue sent him out of the door. In the blink of an eye, the figure disappeared. Rong Xiu walked over from behind. Chu Luiyue turned around and met Rong Xiu's gaze. He was slightly stunned. This expression was a little different from how he usually looked. Those deep eyes looked at her as if there were waves surging, with an indescribable charm. Chu Luiyue touched her face. Is there something dirty on my face? I don't think so. Rong Xiu shook his head and smiled. Oh. Then why are you looking at me like that? Rong Xiu sighed softly. I just suddenly thought of something. What is it? Rong Xiu did not immediately answer. Instead, he walked in front of her and wrapped his arm around her slender and soft waist. He lowered his head slightly and whispered into her ear. I'm thinking, if we have a daughter it would be great. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Then she felt a ball of fire burning from her ears to her cheeks. What did you say? There's no sign of it yet. Rong Xiu looked at her slender and fair neck, which quickly turned crimson. The smile on his lips deepened, and he hugged her even tighter. He bit her ear and lowered his voice. We're already married. How can there be no sign of it? Chu Luiyue was speechless for a moment. His warm breath landed behind her ear and shoulder, almost causing half of her body to feel hot. Why did you suddenly think of this? Rong Xiu chuckled and did not say anything. In fact, he really did not have such thoughts before. It was just that when he saw her gently coaxing Dumpling in the room just now, he suddenly had an idea. If they had a daughter, she would definitely be cute, delicate, and beautiful. Just like her. Then it's settled. I want a daughter. Rong Xiu said. Chu Luiyue glared at him angrily. This kind of thing could not be decided just because he said it. This man's imagination was a little too perfect. Unfortunately, this glare was not intimidating. Instead, it was like the autumn water rippling, like a small hook that kept hooking people's hearts. He directly carried her horizontally and walked into the house. Chu Luiyue was shocked and instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. Rong Xiu? What are you doing? In broad daylight, Rong Xiu looked at her flustered and embarrassed face and suddenly laughed. What do you want me to do? I was just thinking that you just became a god and rushed back without stopping, so you need a good rest. Why, what are you thinking? Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth. This man. Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking the same thing. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and smiled slightly. Then we're really telepathic. We're thinking of the same thing. As he spoke, he carried her into the house. The moment the door was closed, he put her down and pressed her against the door. He supported her head with one hand and pinched her chin with the other. He kissed her half coaxingly and half forcefully. Her words were blurred between her lips and teeth. Oh. Rong Xiu, didn't you want to rest just now? Rong Xiu pressed closer and crushed her voice in between panting breaths. Yes. But I still want this, and this. His voice was close to her ear. It was low and hoarse and his breath was hot. Didn't you just say that you're thinking the same thing as me? Chu Luiyue wanted to argue, but he swallowed all her words. Before she lost consciousness, there was only one sentence left in her mind. This man was too cunning. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2150. The storm in the Red Moon Desert gradually calmed down. The Yu residents quickly sent out a team of elite guards to the New Door world. They took over from Cin Yi and were responsible for guarding it. Lin Qifei and the others also came. With Cin Yi's help, they built a teleportation formation from the New Door world to the Peach Blossom Cove. This way everyone could come and go freely. Perhaps it was because what happened in the Red Moon Desert had quickly spread throughout the entire Divine Ruins world, but many aristocratic families and clans had given up on this New Door world. This also made things convenient for Cin Yi and the others. After dealing with the matters here, he and Lin Qifei rushed back to the Peach Blossom Cove. Clear Ancient Slope, Family Way. Wei Zhe's figure passed through the rolling mountain range until he reached a certain mountain peak. Wei Qihan, who had been waiting here for a long time, immediately came forward when he saw him. Family head, you're finally back. While you were away, the clan. Suddenly, his voice paused as his gaze landed on Wei Zai's arm. You're injured? Wei Zai had already bandaged his own arm and used his wide sleeves to cover it from the outside, but the smell of blood was undeniable. Wei Zai's expression was very gloomy. I was bitten by a beast. What kind of thing is so impudent? Wei Qihan was shocked. With Wei Zai's status and strength, how could he be injured like this? Didn't you go to the family? Wei Qihan's voice stopped abruptly. Seeing Wei Zai's even uglier expression, he was immediately certain of his guess. He really was injured at the family, and it seemed that the process was very unpleasant. He rarely saw Wei Zai with such an expression. Wei Qihan was also a smart person. He immediately shut his mouth and did not ask any more questions. Wei Zai walked into the cave as he asked, What did you say happened in the clan? Wei Qihan hurriedly said, Family head, after you left the stone forest, you haven't returned to the clan. This has dragged on for a long time. There are many things in the clan that are waiting for you to deal with personally. Wei Zai paused, glanced at him and sneered. What could possibly happen at this time? There's an 80% chance that there are people who don't like this patriarch. They sensed that something was wrong and started to cause trouble. Wei Qihan said, Don't worry, they all know that you like to stay here alone for a while. They won't dare to come here rashly. Her words were tactful, but she still acknowledged Wei Zai's words. Wei Zai sneered and continued walking into the cave. Then let them wait. This patriarch wants to see if they can still go against the heavens. With that, his figure disappeared into the pitch-black cave. Home, Wei Qihan wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he didn't follow them in. Looking at the entrance of the cave, his brows were tightly furrowed, and his face was tinged with worry. The patriarch was in a bad mood right now. He probably wouldn't listen to anything. But in reality, the family Wei's situation was not optimistic. Ever since Wei Shiping was expelled from Lingxiao College, the family Wei had been surging with undercurrents. Previously, when Tang Ke's tomb opened, Wei Zai led a group of people to go there, but in the end they returned in defeat. This made everyone in the clan even more dissatisfied. In their opinion, the stone forest was the family Wei's territory. Then, everything in Tang Ke's tomb naturally belonged to them. Although they had no choice but to invite many artifact refining experts from the world of divine ruins, since Wei Zai was the patriarch, he should have taken Tang Ke's inheritance personally. But in the end he still failed. Not only did he give up everything in Tang Ke's tomb, he even lost the Thousand Peaks halberd. Everyone in the family Wei was very dissatisfied with Wei Zai. And after the incident he didn't even show his face once. This was like adding fuel to the fire. If Wei Qihan hadn't desperately stopped them during this period of time, those people would have already chased them here. But looking at Wei Zai's appearance, he didn't seem to care too much about this matter. Wei Qihan sighed helplessly. It seemed that he could only wait for the patriarch to come out and have a good talk with him about this matter. Wei Zai walked all the way in. In the deepest part of the cave, the iron hammer was still there quietly. Wei Zai walked over. Shiping. After a moment, Wei Shiping's voice came out from inside. Father? You're back? How's the situation? Did he say that he's going to let me out? Wei Shiping's words were filled with undisguised eagerness and desire. Previously, when he was talking to Jun Jiuqing, Wei Zai had lied. He didn't make that suggestion because he felt sorry for Wei Shiping, but because Wei Shiping wanted to come out himself. Unfortunately, Jun Jiuqing didn't agree to this suggestion. Shiping, he said that you still need to stay here for a short while. When the time is right, he'll let you out. Wei Zai spoke with difficulty. Wei Shiping's voice disappeared and he didn't reply for a long time. Wei Zai knew that he was upset and comforted him. Don't worry, it won't be long. That's what he said before. But it's been so long and there's still no news from him. I don't trust him anymore. Wei Shiping suddenly exploded and his voice was hoarse and mournful. Father, you have to help me. You have to help me. He had been muddle-headed back then, but he had come to his senses now. No matter what, he didn't want to live like this anymore. Wei Zai's brows furrowed. But in this situation we don't have any other way. Wei Shiping paused for a moment, then his voice suddenly became shrill. Rongxiu. Yes, and Rongxiu. He must have a way. Father, why don't you go and beg him? As long as he's willing to help. Wei Zai closed his eyes. Do you think he'll help? Wei Shiping's voice suddenly stopped. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2151. Wasn't it because he had offended Shangguan Yu that Rongxiu had to deal with him personally? Then Rong Xiu naturally wouldn't help him now. Wei Shiping would be thankful if Rong Xiu didn't stab him in the back. Wei Shiping's thoughts were simple. He wanted revenge. Rong Xiu had caused him to be expelled from Lingxiao College and lose the right to compete for the position of young master of the family Wei. He had become the laughingstock of the world ever since. He hated Rong Xiu to the core and was willing to pay a terrible price. He abandoned his physical body and sealed his soul in this hammer so that he could take revenge one day. But now his thoughts had changed. He was trapped in this endless darkness and had to endure inhumane torture day after day. He didn't even have the slightest hope of getting out. Who could bear such a life? Wei Shiping was almost driven crazy. When he heard Wei Zai's words, he lost his mind. She even said something as ridiculous as begging Rong Xiu for help. Wei Shiping laughed at himself and didn't say anything else. The cave regained its deathly silence, and the surrounding space seemed to have frozen inch by inch. Wei Zai felt terrible. Although he had several sons, Wei Shiping was the one he favored the most. He had always nurtured Wei Shiping as his successor. He wanted to wait until Rong Xiu returned from Lingxiao College before passing the position of young master to him. Who knew that so many things would happen? Shiping, don't worry. I'll think of a way. Wei Zai was about to say something when he suddenly heard Wei Qihan's anxious voice. Master, someone from the clan is here. Wei Zai frowned. Before he left, he comforted Wei Shiping. Father will come to see you again in a while. Take good care of yourself first. After saying that, he lifted his foot and walked outside. Wei Zai walked out of the cave. What happened? Wei Qihan quickly stepped forward. Patriarch, I sense someone approaching just now. If I'm not wrong, it should be Elder Wei Song. Before his voice fell, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from the sky. A figure was rapidly approaching. Wei Zai looked up and his expression turned even colder. The newcomer was a white-robed old man in his 50s. He had a ruddy complexion and white hair. He was indeed Wei Song. There were a total of 6 family Wei elders, and Elder Wei Song was the oldest, the most senior, and the most powerful one. Even Wei Zai had to be courteous when he saw him. Wei Qihan shook his head. I don't know. Wei Song rarely interfered in the affairs of the clan. It was indeed strange that he would suddenly come here today. In the blink of an eye, Wei Song was already in front of them. Patriarch. Elder Wei Song. The two greeted each other. Although Wei Zai was furious that Wei Song had suddenly come here, he was still very polite because of the other party's status and seniority. May I know what brings Elder Wei Song here today? Wei Song's expression was dignified. His old and unfathomable eyes looked indifferently at Wei Zai. Patriarch hasn't returned for a long time. We couldn't help but be worried. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Wei Zai's arm. Patriarch is injured? Wei Zai put his arm behind him and coughed. I was injured in the stone forest. It's nothing serious. Wei Song was a little suspicious. Although he couldn't see the wound, it wasn't hard to tell that Wei Zai was heartbroken from the smell of blood in the air. And the incident in the stone forest had already ended for a month or so. Wei Song didn't expose his clumsy lie and went straight to the point. It's good that Patriarch is fine. I just don't know if Patriarch has time to go back now? Wei Zai was a little puzzled. Elder Wei Song, you came here this time to ask me to go back? That's right. Wei Song admitted frankly. In the entire family Wei, he was the only one who wouldn't be punished for doing this. Wei Zai smiled. I plan to go back as soon as possible. I didn't expect to trouble Elder Wei Song. I'm really sorry. Wei Song nodded. That's good. Something happened in the family. Patriarch should go back as soon as possible. His reaction finally made Wei Zai realize that something was wrong. What happened in the family? Wei Song stared at him. Someone from the Yuntian Tower is here. Yan Qing stood in front of the gate of the Wei residence with his hands behind his back. In addition, there were a few people from the family Wei. Lord Yan Qing, Patriarch hasn't been in the residence recently. Even if he wants to come back, it will take some time. It's not appropriate for you to stand here all the time. Why don't you go in and wait? One of the elders tried to persuade him. Yan Qing's expression didn't change. His voice was cold and his face was stern. No need. I'll just wait here. He really had no interest in stepping through the gate of the family Wei. The people standing at the gate looked at each other. This Yan Qing was too domineering. Without saying anything, he directly came to the gate and said that he wanted to see their patriarch. He didn't even enter the gate and just stood there blocking the way. And from the looks of it, he wouldn't leave until he saw their patriarch. What was this? If it weren't for his master, they wouldn't have swallowed this humiliation. Just as the two sides were in a deadlock, Wei Song and the other two finally arrived. Wei Zai's heart skipped a beat when he saw Yan Qing standing upright with a cold expression from afar. Why did Yan Qing have to come to the family Wei at this time? Everyone knew that Yan Qing was Rong Xiu's right-hand man. Now that he was here, he obviously represented Rong Xiu. Wei Zai was a little uneasy, but he forced himself to remain calm. Lord Yan Qing, what brings you here from afar? Yan Qing half-turned and looked at Wei Zai. Patriarch of the family Wei. I'm here today under orders to represent the Holy Sun and demand an explanation from the family Wei's patriarch. He had always been an iceberg. At this moment, his cold and solemn expression added a bit of dignity and made people unconsciously revere him. Wei Zai frowned inwardly. Although Yan Qing was extremely young, he had followed Rong Xiu for many years. Standing in front of him, he did not lose out in terms of aura at all. Demand an explanation? I don't know when I offended Yuntian Tower. Since Yan Qing did not come with good intentions, Wei Zai did not beat around the bush. Yan Qing was obviously here to cause trouble. Patriarch of the family Wei, you know very well. Yan Qing looked at him coldly. Lin Jiang of the Mahayana sect harbored ill intentions some time ago. He repaid kindness with ingratitude and tried to steal the princess consort's Tian baby. He also wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to lay his hands on many other first-rate families and clans. Now, he has died at the hands of the princess consort and his highness. Do you really have nothing to say about this matter? The other members of the Wei clan were all at a loss. Wei Zai's heart sank and he instinctively denied it. What does the Mahayana sect have to do with my family Wei? Yan Qing said. You know very well whether it has anything to do with you. His highness means that for the sake of your family Wei, you should personally go to Peach Blossom Cove and apologize. Wonderful book room. Chapter 2152. Wei Zai was so angry that he laughed. Did they want him to apologize in person? Yes, the alliance between Yuntian Tower and the Yu clan was indeed superior to the family Wei. But that didn't mean that Rong Xiu and Chu Luiwei could do whatever they wanted. The family Wei was a first-rate family Wei that had stood tall in the divine ruins for thousands of years. As the head of the family, he represented himself and the entire family Wei. If he really went this time, wouldn't he be ridiculed by the world? The family Wei has very little contact with the Mahayana sect. As for that Lin Jiang you mentioned, he has nothing to do with us at all. Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Go find whoever made the mistake. Why do you have to trouble the family Wei? Wei Zai straightened his collar. After the opening of the New Door world, I've already ordered the family Wei to stay in their homes and not participate in this matter. If Lord Yan Qing doesn't believe me, you can investigate and see if anyone from the family Wei has left the Qinggu Slope during this time. His words were said with confidence, and there was even a hint of anger on his face from being casually accused. When the others saw this, they all nodded in agreement. That's right. The head of the family did give such an order. We've been here all this time. If the Mahayana sect is the culprit, then go find them. Why did they find us? That's right. Isn't that person from Yuntianke a little too arrogant? Before the last two words could be spat out, the person who spoke instantly felt a chill on his back. He subconsciously raised his head and met Yan Qing's cold and solemn gaze. His heart trembled and he subconsciously swallowed the rest of the words he was about to say. This Yan Qing is so powerful. The surrounding people subconsciously quieted down. Yan Qing raised her eyebrows and stared at Wei Zai. Family Wei's head, I happen to know that someone has left the Qinggu Slope recently. Are you interested in hearing? Wei Zai's eyelids twitched violently. Yan Qing's words were, Lord Yan Qing, this is a matter of great importance. If you can't come up with convincing evidence, I'm afraid my family Wei won't agree to your request. It was Wei Song who spoke. No matter what, family Wei's reputation was still important. If Wei Zai really went to the Peach Blossom Cove to apologize, then this news would quickly spread throughout the entire Divine Ruins world. At that time, not only would Wei Zai be too ashamed to face everyone, but everyone in his family Wei would also be humiliated. Yan Qing nodded. His Highness has never fought a battle that he is not confident in, and this time is no different. Of course there is evidence. If the head of the family Wei wishes to see it, I can show it now. Wei Zai's heart thumped wildly. He really couldn't be sure how true Yan Qing's words were. But since he dared to come to them directly like this, then, things were probably not going well. Wei Zai quickly searched his mind for any possible loopholes. He had buried Lin Zhang's trail for a long time, and even the other members of the family Wei didn't know about it. And now that that person was dead, there was no evidence. What evidence could they have? But Wei Zhe really didn't dare to take the risk. After thinking for a while, he finally said seriously, "It seems that the Holy Son and Master, you have a deep misunderstanding about this matter. How about this, I'll go with you to the Peach Blossom Cove and explain it to them face to face. The family Wei and Yuntian Tower have always minded their own business. It's not worth it to have a conflict because of some misunderstanding." His words were very beautiful. He agreed to Yin Qing's request to go with her to the Peach Blossom Cove, but not to apologize, but to explain the misunderstanding. Sounded a lot better. Yin Qing took half a step back. "Head of the family Wei, please." Peach Blossom Cove. The night passed quickly. When Zichen woke up, he felt that something was pressing down on his blanket. He opened his eyes and saw a round head. Red strings and golden bells were faintly discernible in the messy bun. It was Dumpling, who was lying on the edge of the bed, asleep. Ever since Chu Luiwei gave her the task of looking after Zichen, she had made up her mind to stay here and guard him. In the end, she couldn't hold on and fell asleep. Her sixth meridian was forcefully opened in the Red Moon Desert, and it was very taxing on her. Her small body was still recovering, so it was normal for her to be sleepy. Zichen tilted his head and looked at Dumpling indifferently. He couldn't tell what she was thinking. She was sleeping soundly, mumbling something under her breath. "I'm sorry." The corners of Zichen's lips curled up ever so slightly. Dumpling finally woke up and slowly opened her eyes as if she sensed something. Zichen closed his eyes. Dumpling rubbed her eyes and looked at Zichen. "You're still sleeping?" she said softly. It seemed that Zichen's injury was really serious. She stretched her body and yawned as she jumped down from the stool. Then she quietly walked to the bedside. Zichen thought she was going to get medicine, but he didn't hear anything after waiting for a while. Just as he was feeling puzzled, he suddenly felt something approaching. Dumpling put her hands on the edge of the bed, stood on tiptoe, and put her head close to the wound on Zichen's shoulder. At this time, his injury was bandaged, but a little bit of blood could still be seen seeping out. Dumpling sighed slightly and felt a little depressed. Every time she saw Zichen's wound, she couldn't help but think of that scene. The feeling of his flesh and blood being torn apart and his blood splattering was so clear and vivid. Zichen thought that Dumpling would leave out of curiosity, but after waiting for a while, she still didn't move. A few strands of her hair fell and floated on his neck and shoulders. Her little head moved and the strands of hair swept back and forth. It was very itchy. After a while, Zichen finally couldn't stand it anymore and coughed deliberately. Dumpling suddenly woke up and looked up at him with a face full of surprise. "Zichen, you're awake." "Zichen." "Yes." "Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something? Or, do you want to take medicine first?" Dumpling frowned and thought carefully. "And the medicine on your wound needs to be changed. Why don't you drink water first?" After saying that, she looked at Zichen with bright eyes as if waiting for his answer. Zichen was a little helpless. "Dumpling, I can do these things myself." You told me to take good care of you. Don't tell me. Do you think I'm not good enough?" Dumpling widened her eyes. Zichen paused and didn't remind her. From yesterday until now, she didn't seem to have done anything. She just lay there and slept. "No. Drink some water first." "Okay." Dumpling turned around and ran to get the water. Boom. A reddish gold flame ignited and burned the teapot clean in the blink of an eye. The things here were all ordinary things and couldn't withstand her burning. Dumpling was stunned and looked back at him blankly. "I just thought that it's better for you to drink hot water. Shall I get another pot?" Zichen closed his eyes. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2153. By the time Chu Luiwei woke up, it was already noon the next day. Rong Xiu seemed to have just gone out. The freshly brewed tea on the table was still emitting white smoke. She moved her arms, and the red marks on her collarbone were faintly discernible. However, she felt very refreshed. She vaguely remembered that Rong Xiu had carried her to take a bath later. Someone was really unscrupulous in order to have a daughter. Chu Luiwei's face was slightly hot. She rubbed her face with her hands before getting dressed. However, her physical strength was much stronger than before, probably because she had broken through to the god level. Although she had been tossing and turning for a long time, she didn't feel too sore or uncomfortable. Chu Luiwei got up and walked outside. She saw the blond boy guarding outside the courtyard. He was half leaning against the moon gate, frowning slightly. His expression was solemn, as if he was thinking about something. Her short, Soft hair hung down and shone faintly under the sunlight. "Little Zhou." Chu Liwei called out. Chang Wanzhou seemed to be immersed in his own thoughts and didn't respond. Chu Liwei walked over and raised her voice slightly. "Little Zhou?" Chang Wanzhou suddenly came back to his senses and turned to look at her. When her face came into view, he was in a trance for a moment. For a moment, Chu Liwei even felt that Chang Wanzhou was looking at another person through her. She stretched out her hand, waved it in front of his eyes and smiled. "What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed?" Chang Wanzhou's eyes finally focused. He quickly shook his head. "Nothing." Chu Liwei felt a little strange. He seemed to have something on his mind. However, since it was something on his mind, he might not want to tell others, so she didn't ask. "Why are you here?" Although he would usually guard her, this courtyard was her and Rong Xiu's residence. Usually no one would come here. Even Chang Wanzhou and the others would be extremely careful and hide if they wanted to guard it. It was rare to see someone waiting at the entrance of the courtyard in broad daylight. Chang Wanzhou stood up straight. "Wei Zhe is here." The saint had already gone over and was now in the front hall. "The saint said that he would invite you over when you woke up." "Wei Zhe? Why is he here?" Chu Liwei suddenly felt a little ridiculous and the corners of his lips curled up. Could it be because of Lin Jiang of the Mahayana sect? Previously, she had interrogated the man about his background, but he refused to tell her. He even tried to self-destruct, but was stopped by Rong Xiu in the end. That person's physical body was destroyed on the spot, leaving only a wisp of his soul, which was locked up by Rong Xiu. Could it be that Rong Xiu had found out something? Or did he have other evidence? It wasn't that Chu Liwei didn't suspect the Wei family. After all, in the entire Divine Ruins world, there were only a few clans that could send out supreme gods as informants. Excluding those who were obviously unrelated, the range was even narrower. Not to mention she had a grudge with family Wei. "Wei Zhe came back with Lord Yanqing," Chang Wanzhou said. Chu Liwei raised an eyebrow, and was even more certain of her guess. This place was extremely far from family Wei, and it would take a lot of time to go back and forth. Wei Zhe came so quickly. It seemed that Yanqing was fast. No, perhaps it should be said that Rong Xiu was too decisive. "Let's go take a look." In the front hall, Rong Xiu sat at the head of the table, and Wei Zhe sat at the bottom left. Yanqing stood guard outside the door. The atmosphere in the room was cold and tense. Rong Xiu lowered his eyes and took a sip of tea. The green leaves floating in the air emitted a faint fragrance, and there was also a bitter ginger smell in the air. He wasn't used to it before, but now he liked it very much. He was taking his time, but Wei Zhe couldn't sit still. He and Rong Xiu were on equal footing, and he was even older, but for some reason he always felt that he was inferior in terms of aura in front of Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu only put down the teacup after the bitter fragrance of the ginger tea spread between his teeth. Thud. The high-quality porcelain teacup fell on the table, making a sound that was neither loud nor soft. It was especially clear in the silent room. Wei Zhe's heart skipped a beat. In that case, that fake Lin Jiang really has nothing to do with the Wei clan? Wei Zhe immediately said. Of course. Countless noble clans went to the opening of the new gate world, but family Wei didn't participate. How could this person have anything to do with us? Yes, I's also very curious about this. Since everyone went, why didn't family Wei go? Such a great opportunity. How could family Wei miss it? Rong Xiu looked up at him with a faint smile. Wei Zhe forced a smile and said, "Well, I was delayed by some matters at the time, so I didn't have time. Later I thought it would be too late to go, so I just let it go. Other than family Wei, there are actually many other noble clans who didn't go, right? It doesn't seem strange." Rong Xiu nodded. Family Wei's words make sense. Wei Zhe sighed in relief. The Holy Sun has always been smart, so I don't think you'll be misled by such things without any evidence. Since that person is dead, there's no evidence. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to find the mastermind, Rong Xiu suddenly said. Who said he's dead? Wei Zhe's expression froze for a moment. The connection between him and that person had been cut off. That person was definitely dead. Moreover, didn't Yanqing say the same thing before? Rong Xiu's lips curved slightly. With a move of his palm, several rays of golden light flew out from between his fingers, instantly forming a square golden cage. In the cage there was a red and black ball of light. It was the soul of the fake Lin Jiang. Wei Zhe's hand suddenly clenched the armrest of the chair. It took him a lot of effort to resist the urge to stand up. However, the shock and panic that flashed across his face did not escape Rong Xiu's eyes. This person is extremely daring. He tried to steal Yuer's 2 Tian baby and even wanted to slander you. With so many crimes, wouldn't it be too easy for him to just let him die? Rong Xiu smiled slightly. Does the head of the family Wei think that I am such a soft-hearted person? The corner of Wei Zai's eyes twitched fiercely. Arrogant. Impudent. In the world of divine ruins, Rong Xiu's fierce reputation was well known. Everyone knew that he was not to be trifled with. However, he actually admitted that he was vicious and merciless in front of everyone. Wasn't he too arrogant? Wasn't this a clear threat to Wei Zai? Then what did the Holy Sun find out? Wei Zai asked with a dry throat. Rong Xiu raised his chin. This is a death warrior. I can't get anything out of him. Now that there is only a soul left, it's even harder to get anything out of him. Wei Zai's hanging heart was just about to calm down when he heard Rong Xiu continue. However, I found a very interesting coincidence. His aura seems to be quite similar to the head of the family Wei. Could it be that the head of the family Wei has something to say about this? Wei Zai immediately denied it. How is that possible? The Holy Sun must have made a mistake. By the way, speaking of which, the hammer in the head of the family Wei also seems to have an extremely similar aura to this one. Wei Zai's voice came to an abrupt halt. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2154. He looked at Rong Xiu in bewilderment, trying to figure out something from his face. He had felt that Rong Xiu had guessed something before, but he was not sure. But now, what do you want to say, son of God? He took a deep breath and asked in a low voice. Beating around the bush like this is just wasting our time. Let's get straight to the point. The head of family Wei is really a straightforward person. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a satisfied smile. Hand over Wei Shiping and we'll let bygones be bygones. Wei Zai's pupils constricted. When Chu Luiyue arrived, he saw that the door to the front hall was tightly shut, and Yan Qing was standing guard at the door. He hugged his sword with both hands and straightened his back. He stood there like a miniature iceberg. When he saw Chu Luiyue, he immediately wanted to salute, but Chu Luiyue waved his hand, indicating that there was no need for that. They're inside? Yan Qing nodded. His Highness said that you can go in directly after you arrive. Chu Luiyue was also very curious about the situation inside. Just as he was about to enter, he suddenly took a step back and sized up Yan Qing. Yan Qing was a little confused. Is there something wrong with your subordinate? Chu Luiyue nodded, then shook his head and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Yan Qing, your strength seems to have improved a lot compared to before? She did not notice at first, but after taking a closer look, she realized that Yan Qing's aura was indeed much stronger than before. This cultivation speed is a little too fast. To be able to follow Rong Xiu and be highly regarded by him, Yan Qing's talent was naturally unquestionable. But this progress still surprised Chu Luiyue. Yan Qing didn't expect her to be thinking about this. She paused for a moment. I heard that you went to family Wei alone and invited Wei Zai back? Chu Luiyue asked again. Yan Qing nodded. Yes. That was even more shocking. The Wei clan was a first-rate aristocratic family after all. He had gone there alone and returned unscathed. If one didn't have a certain level of strength, they wouldn't be able to do it. Chu Luiyue thought for a while, then smiled meaningfully. You really are quite similar to Cini. Cini was someone who hid his strength well, and Yan Qing was even more so. Yan Qing cupped his hands and said, your subordinate doesn't dare. No wonder little Hachi is afraid of you now. She's always been most afraid of Cini, and now you're added to the list. Chu Luiyue teased. Previously, when they were at Yuntian Tower, little Hachi went to find trouble with Yan Qing every day. After coming to Peach Blossom Cove, she restrained herself a lot and even avoided him. Other than Cini, probably only Yan Qing could suppress her. Yan Qing was stunned and pursed his thin lips. Your subordinate didn't mean to offend little Hachi. It's just that there were some misunderstandings previously. Chu Luiyue waved her hand. It's fine. Although little Hachi is a little willful, she doesn't take anything to heart. You don't have to be too concerned. Yan Qing wanted to say something but hesitated. During this period of time, he indeed hadn't met little Hachi. Chu Luiyue didn't notice Yan Qing's expression. After saying that, she planned to push open the door and enter. However, at this moment, the door was suddenly opened from the inside. Chu Luiyue took half a step back and bumped into Wei Zai's face. However, Wei Zai's expression was extremely ugly at this moment. Chu Luiyue had only seen such an expression on his face when she won against him in Tang Ke's tomb. She instantly smiled. Yo, family Wei's head? Long time no see. How have you been? When Wei Zai saw Chu Luiyue, his already terrible mood became even worse. He took a deep breath, and it took him a great deal of effort to finally control his emotions. I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first. As he spoke, he was about to leave. Chu Luiyue blocked his path. Ichim? I just came and the head of Family Wei's head is leaving? What does this mean? You don't want to see me? Of course I don't want to see you. If he wasn't forced to, he wouldn't even come to this place. Wei Zhe cursed in his heart. He felt as if something was about to rush out of his chest. The head of Family Wei indeed has something urgent to do. Rong Xiu walked over unhurriedly and smiled faintly. Let's not waste his time. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Her gaze swept back and forth between the two of them, and she was momentarily stunned. Has the discussion been settled? But she still didn't know anything. However, looking at the two of them, there was an 80% chance that Wei Zhe was utterly defeated. Chu Luiyue took a step back. Wei Zhe was about to leave when Rong Xiu reminded him, Family Wei, you seem to have forgotten something? Wei Zhe stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Chu Luiyue. The flesh on his face twitched a few times before he finally spat out a few words. I, Wei Zhe, apologize to the head of Family Wei. I hope that the head of Family Wei will be magnanimous and not be calculative with me. Chu Luiyue was even more surprised. Wei Zhe was a very stubborn person, but he was actually willing to take the initiative to apologize today? She thought for a moment. The head of Family Wei have a safe trip? Wei Zhe almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He flung his sleeves fiercely and walked away quickly. Chu Luiyue waited until his figure disappeared before she turned to look at Rong Xiu. Isn't this a little too fast? I just got here, it's just a small matter. It's not that complicated. Rong Xiu's lips curved slightly. Chu Luiyue blinked. You asked me to come, just to hear his apology? What did you say to him just now? Why is he willing to lower his head? Rong Xiu smiled. Come in, I'll tell you slowly. The two of them entered the room and Rong Xiu briefly described what happened earlier. Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. That's it. That's it. You only mentioned Wei Shiping's name and he agreed to everything you said? Chu Luiyue thought about it and still found it unbelievable. You think so highly of Wei Shiping? Didn't you say that Wei Shiping wanted to be the head of Family Wei, and the competition was fierce? That's just a gimmick. From the beginning, Wei Zhe was prepared to give the position of the head of Family Wei to Wei Shiping. Otherwise, why would he be the only one among the younger generation of Family Wei who went to Lingxiao College? In the eyes of outsiders, Wei Shiping was diligent and studious, but in reality, it was all Wei Zhe's idea to pave the way for Wei Shiping. But, even so, how can you be sure that the person in the hammer is Wei Shiping? Chu Luiyue had his suspicions, but he didn't dare to be sure because he didn't have any evidence. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a faint smile. He thinks highly of that thing and with that aura, it's enough to confirm. Actually, I don't have any evidence but I'm just bluffing him. He admitted it himself. Chu Luiyue clicked his tongue. From the beginning to the end, Rong Xiu didn't spend any effort to get rid of Wei Zhe? What a pity I should have come earlier. Chu Luiyue sighed regretfully. Wei Zhe's expression must have been very interesting. He'll come again. Rong Xiu said. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2155. However, there is indeed something wrong with his hammer. After Wei Shiping was expelled from the academy, he disappeared without a trace. The outside world had been spreading rumors and even the Family Wei had no news of him. Who would have thought that he was actually hiding in there? Chu Luiyue tapped her finger on the table lightly. I don't know what happened in the middle. When Wei Zhe comes again, everything will be clear. Rong Xiu said and paused. Alright, I plan to help Senior Tang Ke reconstruct his body. Chu Luiyue was stunned. No. Yes. I didn't completely destroy the body of the fake Lin Jiang. I left his remains behind. Now I can leave it for Senior Tang Ke to use. Tang Ke was a venerable god expert when he was alive. If he had the bones of a venerable god, this matter would be much simpler. Chu Luiyue clapped her hands and laughed. That's great. Fortunately, you remembered, otherwise you would have missed a great opportunity. The pills that Mr. Su needs have been refined. As long as we can find the bones of a stage 9 martial artist, we can reconstruct the body. If Senior Tang Ke can do the same, that would be the best. Rong Xiu smiled. Previously, Tang Ke was not in a hurry. But ever since Chu Luiyue finished refining the pill, Tang Ke became anxious. She was worried day and night, afraid that she would come out too late and delay things. How could Tang Ke let go of a venerable god skeleton? Rong Xiu couldn't forget it even if he wanted to. But if that's the case, doesn't everyone know about the existence of Mr. Su and Senior Tang Ko? Then their identities? Chu Luiyue was a little conflicted. When they left the stone forest, the world only thought that she had obtained Tang Ko's inheritance. If Tang Ko and Su Li appeared again, it would be earth-shattering news to the entire Divine Ruins world. Rong Xiu's expression was calm. Senior Tang Ko told me before that the Tang family has been disbanded and he plans to stay in Peach Blossom Cove. If you are willing, he wants to be a nominal elder here. However, if you are unwilling, then forget it. The corners of Chu Liyue's eyes twitched. Forget it? How could he just let this go? That was Tang Ko. I'm willing. Of course I'm willing. It was unknown how many people in the Divine Ruins world wanted to meet Tang Ko, but they couldn't. She had directly invited Tang Ko to become an elder and oversee the Peach Blossom Cove. How could he reject such a good thing? Su Li had expressed similar wishes before, but she did not expect Tang Ko to also. Please help me tell Senior Tang Ko that he is most welcome. Chu Luiyue stood up happily. If that's the case, then I'll go do Mr. Su's thing first. It was too easy to find the bones of a rank 9 warrior in the Peach Blossom Cove. Previously she had already sent Shi Fang to look for them. Now she could go and choose. With that she turned around and left. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. When Chu Luiyue arrived at Shi Fang's courtyard, he was cooking on a stove in the corner of the courtyard. After not coming for a period of time, his small courtyard was already filled with all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and a considerable number of them had already grown. A rich fragrance wafted out, almost filling the entire courtyard. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and suddenly felt his appetite increase. In fact, at their cultivation level, they could already rely on absorbing the energy of heaven and earth to replenish themselves. It was no longer important whether they ate or not. But Shi Fang was very persistent. Some time ago he had been constantly running around planting vegetables in several places, but in the end they did not grow. This was why he had been starving until now. This was his first meal. You're here? Take a seat first. Shi Fang heard the commotion and said without turning his head. Chu Luiyue turned his head and saw a long table on the other side of the courtyard with a few stools on both sides. It seemed to have been prepared long ago. Chu Luiyue asked, Shi Fang, who are you waiting for? Hearing the voice, Shi Fang was shocked and quickly turned around. Master? Why are you here? Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. Can't I come? Of course not. A voice suddenly came from behind, startling Chu Luiyue. She turned around, only to see that Sanson was already standing behind her without her knowing. Behind him stood Yu Jiu and a few others. At this moment they were all holding bowls and chopsticks in their hands, looking like they were about to come over to eat. Chu Luiyue glanced at them. Why are you all here? Master, we're here to eat. Sanson's small eyes narrowed with a smile. If I had known that you would come, I would have brought an extra bowl. The corner of Chu Liyue's mouth twitched. No need. I just came over to take a look. I didn't expect to bump into. Master, you're here at the right time. Shi Fang waved the ladle in his hand. Please take a seat first. I have new bowls and chopsticks in my room. That's right. You're here at the right time today. Go in. The food will get cold if we wait any longer. Let's go. Sanson and a few others surrounded Chu Luiyue and walked in. By the time Chu Luiyue reacted, she was already sitting at one end of the long table in a daze. Sanson and the others sat on both sides. Shi Fang was serving the dishes eagerly and diligently. Chu Luiyue glanced at them. All vegetarian? Sigh, it's all tearing up. Shi Fang put down the last dish in his hand and said with emotion, I've been here for too short a time and didn't have time to raise those little guys. Besides, second brother isn't here and I don't know how to raise them, so I simply gave up. Today's meal is already hard to come by. Master, please don't mind. Chu Luiyue trembled all over. Some not-so-beautiful images surged in her mind. That's right, in the 13U Palace, the second brother liked to raise little guys. In the past, they had caused a lot of trouble in the palace. Until now, she still remembered the scene of her study being occupied by a few little guys. Forget it. This is pretty good. Chu Luiyue coughed. Shi Fang's culinary skills were very good. Although they were all vegetarian dishes, they looked, smelled, and tasted good. This was also why Sanson and the others rushed over for this meal. Shi Fang, have a seat too. Chu Luiyue looked around and asked. Wu Yao didn't come today? Master, you forgot that fifth brother is in charge of guarding the door realm today, Yu Jiu said as she placed the wooden sword by her feet. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. Then, let's eat? Master, wait a moment. As Shi Fang spoke, he placed a set of cutlery beside her. Chu Luiyue blinked. This position. Just as she was thinking, another person arrived outside the door. Was Cini. He was dressed in a green robe, and his movements were like green bamboo in the wind, carrying a carefree aura. For such a person to appear here, it was really a little inappropriate. When Cini saw Chu Luiyue, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes, but he quickly calmed down and walked over. Everyone whispered. Master, your seat originally belonged to Big Brother. But now that she was here, Cini could only be one seat below her. Cini quickly walked forward. Master. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2156. Chu Luiyue waved her hand. Sit. Thank you, Master. After Cini finished speaking, he readily sat down. Master, why are you free today? It's nothing big. I just came to ask Shi Fang for something. I just happened to make it. Cini looked enlightened. Then you should try it too. Shi Fang's culinary skills are pretty good. Chu Luiyue was speechless. She wasn't here to eat today. Then she heard her own voice. Okay. After a short silence, Chu Luiyue started eating. Then Cini. Finally, everyone was able to eat. Ah. Shi Fang was so touched that his eyes brimmed with tears. If I still can't eat, I'll really starve to death. Who can you blame for being too picky? Little Hachi scoffed. She picked up another mouthful of food and piled it in 13's bowl. 13, you're still growing. Eat more, okay? 13 tried his best to eat as he asked. Thank you, Sister 8. Sister 8, you don't like this dish either? Little Hachi sighed. I've been on a diet recently, so I have to eat less. 13 was stunned. Sister 8, vegetables, will get fat too? Little Hachi glanced at him resentfully. You're still young and it's time for you to lose weight. How would you understand your Sister 8's troubles? 13 nodded as if he understood, and began to eat the food in his bowl again. Although he ate a lot and quickly, he didn't seem to be wolfing down the food. He had learned a lot after following Cini all these years, including this. Chu Luiyue's lips twitched. Little Hachi clearly didn't like that dish. Even if she lay down all day without moving, her waist would still be thin. It was a natural trait. Speaking of which, she was second only to Shi Fang in terms of pickiness in the 13U tribe. By the way, when is second brother coming? Chu Luiyue looked at Cini. Cini paused. He sent a letter some time ago saying that he's on his way here. Judging by the time, he should be here soon. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Luiyue suddenly heard a commotion outside. They all turned their heads to look and saw a group of magical beasts suddenly swarming towards them. Chu Luiyue was stunned. These were the demonic beasts that she had brought back from the Black Demon Cave. She had already released them back into the forest, but now, suddenly she thought of something. Second brother is back. Shi Fang stood up excitedly. True enough. Chu Luiyue looked over and saw a tall figure faintly discernible among the group of magical beasts. Cini put down his chopsticks. Speak of the devil? Yujio muttered softly as she raised the wooden sword in her hand. Sanson grasped the bowl in his hand tightly and said nervously, This is too sudden. Why didn't you tell me in advance? 13 quickly finished the last mouthful of rice in his bowl. If he didn't eat now, he might not be able to eat later. Little Hachi got up seductively and was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she was beside Chu Luiyue and held her arm. Mistress, let me lean on your shoulder for a while. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Ah, big brother. You're all here. A thunderous voice was heard. Come, come, all of you, make way. These words were directed at the group of magical beasts. As soon as he spoke, the magic beasts that were following him obediently opened up a path, but they still followed closely behind him, blindly following his every step. If others saw this scene, their eyeballs would probably fall out of their sockets. There were at least a dozen of these magical beasts, and they were all divine beasts. Under normal circumstances, it was very difficult for ordinary people to get close. However, these magical beasts were all sticking to him and obeying his orders. However, Cini and the others didn't seem surprised by this at all. To put it bluntly, to them, this scene was not as impactful as this man's appearance. He picked up a little thing hanging in front of his chest and placed it on his shoulder. Then he walked towards everyone. This was a man who looked to be in his late 20s. He was extremely tall, almost as tall as Zichin. His skin was wheat-colored, his eyebrows were sharp, and his facial features were strong. There was a jade seal on his waist. It was the size of a thumb and was exquisite and translucent. Other than that, there were no other accessories on him. When he reached the entrance of the courtyard, he turned around and said to the magical beasts, Stay here obediently. All of you stay here obediently. Don't move around without my orders, understand? Those magical beasts really obediently stopped where they were. Only the one on his shoulder suddenly jumped down and ran towards 13. 13 instantly recognized that it was the red cloud leopard cub and smiled. The little scarlet cloud leopard jumped into 13's arms and was caught by him. You also came with second brother? The little red cloud leopard rubbed against his chest and snorted twice. Seems like it really likes you. It actually abandoned second brother to come to you. Yu Jiu exclaimed. Ah, you're cooking? Looks like I came at the right time. As he spoke, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and his gaze landed on Chu Luiyue. After being stunned for a short while, his eyes quickly surged with excitement. Master. Chu Luiyue's current appearance was almost 80% similar to before. That unique aura was really too easy to recognize. Chu Luiyue sighed softly in his heart and pursed his lips into a smile. Although they had not seen each other for only a few years, to them they had been separated by life and death. Now that they met again, everything from yesterday appeared vividly before their eyes. It was as if nothing had happened in between. They were still the same as before. Shuang, long time no see. Welcome back. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2157. That's right. The tall and strong man in front of him was ranked second in the 13 guards. He had a very memorable name, Hua Shuang. Although it sounded a little weird for a man to use these three words, Hua Shuang didn't think so herself. He was very open-minded about these things. Besides, it was Chu Luiyue who was calling him. Greetings, master. Hua Shuang immediately knelt on one knee and bowed solemnly. Chu Luiyue raised his hand and a gentle force helped him up. No need to be so polite, come here. Hua Shuang got up and walked forward. As soon as he stepped into the courtyard, the magical beasts behind him became restless again. Chu Luiyue was a little helpless. You went to tease them again? Speaking of this, Hua Shuang was a little embarrassed. After coming to Peach Blossom Dock, I wanted to come here directly, but I happened to meet, so I went to the mountain for a few rounds. This was also the reason why he was late to the party. Chu Luiyue facepalmed. Hua Shuang had a special characteristic. He liked magical beasts. To be precise, he liked to tame beasts. Generally speaking, magical beasts were wild by nature and were naturally wary and repulsed by humans. Unless it was a contract, it was very difficult for humans to control magical beasts for their own use. But Hua Shuang was different. For some reason he was very popular with all kinds of magical beasts and could easily tame them. He didn't expect that even the divine beasts were like this now. It's okay, you came at the right time. We were talking about you just now. Sanson immediately moved to the side, so Yu Jiu followed suit. Hua Shuang sat down and saw Sanson beside him. He immediately laughed. Sanson, I haven't seen you in so long, but you've become rounder. Looks like you've been living well recently. Second brother, you're joking with me again. Second brother, I thought that you would bring some food with you this time. Shi Fang was a little disappointed. Master said that we were all vegetarian just now. Hua Shuang put his fist to his lips and coughed. I really can't help it. I rushed over after hearing the news. It's really inconvenient to bring you along. That's true. Shi Fang immediately felt guilty. I didn't think it through. Hua Shuang waved her hand carelessly, indicating that she didn't care. However, this action of his caused the magical beasts guarding outside to become restless again. The few in front of them even approached them tentatively. Hua Shuang immediately raised her chin and gave them a warning look. What did you say? Go back. Perhaps it was because his words were more severe this time, but after lingering at the door for a while, the magic beasts finally left reluctantly. A few of them retreated a distance away, but they still stayed behind. The atmosphere of the banquet instantly recovered from its tense state. Sanson put down the bowl in her hand. Yu Jiu released the wooden sword. 13 stroked the little red cloud leopard in his arms and thought to himself, this time I can eat my fill. Little Hachi gently exhaled and fanned herself with her palm. Fortunately, her new clothes and exquisite makeup wouldn't be ruined by those little things. Chu Luiyue looked at Hua Shuang with appreciation. Shuang, it seems that you've improved a lot. In the past, when Hua Shuang was taming beasts, she often caused a mess because she couldn't control them well. However, this time it was very effective. Those divine beasts seemed to be exceptionally obedient. Hua Shuang laughed. It's been so long. If I can't even do this well, I really don't have the face to see you. Although she said this in a joking tone, Chu Luiyue could hear the seriousness in her words. Something seemed to surge up from the bottom of her heart. It was slightly sour and warm. "It's good that you're here," Hua Shuang said. "Master, I heard that the magical beasts in Peach Blossom Dock were all brought back by you?" Chu Liyue smiled and briefly told her what happened. A trace of surprise flashed across Hua Shuang's eyes. No wonder. Generally speaking, these divine beasts are arrogant and rarely live together in such a messy place. So it's because of this. Besides, with the red-gold celestial phoenix suppressing them, they're much more well-behaved. Chu Liyue's lips curved up. Hua Shuang's words made sense. These magical beasts were full of respect and admiration for Dumpling. Even if Dumpling didn't care about them, they would still pay attention to them. "Oh right, actually, Dumpling is little 9. You haven't seen each other for a long time. She must miss you very much." Chu Liyue smiled. At that time, Dumpling was still a 9-colored heavenly pheasant, which was also the highest-level magical beast in the Tianling imperial capital. When the human and beast worked together, they could be considered invincible. Thus, their relationship had always been very good. Really? Hua Shuang was very surprised. Actually, she had already vaguely guessed it before. Now that she heard Chu Liyue's confirmation, she instantly felt more at ease. "But she's not here now. She's busy with other things. I'll bring you to see her later." Hua Shuang immediately agreed. "Thank you, Master." Chu Liyue paused for a moment before asking, "How have you been these few years?" On the other side, Dumpling was helping Ziqin bandage his wound. She carefully removed the gauze, cleaned his wound, and applied a layer of medicine. Finally, she wrapped it again with clean white gauze. After some work, she finally clapped her hands in satisfaction. "All right. Ziqin, how do you think I've bandaged your wound for you?" Ziqin looked down at the bow on his wrist and remained silent for a long time. "Pretty good. Wonderful book house." Chapter 2158. Dumpling was very happy to be praised. "Hee, don't worry. With me around you'll recover very quickly." Ziqin glanced at her. Seeing that her eyes were bright and her expression was firm, his handsome and cold brows relaxed a little. "Okay." Dumpling put away the rest of the medicine. "You said that your injury will take 10 days. She turned around and looked outside. A trace of doubt flashed in her big black grape-like eyes. "Why are they all here again?" Ziqin also noticed something and looked out of the window. Both of them were mythical beasts, so they were naturally very sensitive to the aura of mythical beasts. Many mythical beasts suddenly swarmed into the Yu residence. Except for the first time when they were brought back, such a situation had never happened again. Now this was, I know. Tuanzi seemed to suddenly think of something and clapped her hands. "He must be here." Ziqin's eyes turned slightly. Oh. Dumpling smiled with curved eyes. "You don't know him. But he's a very nice person. He's probably the only one who can bring so many mythical beasts here." Ziqin looked at her cheerful smile and asked, "It seems that you have a good relationship." "Yes. It's been a long time since we last met," Dumpling said as she jumped onto a stool and swung her 2 white little feet. She rested her chin on her hands as if she was reminiscing about something. Ziqin said, "Since he's here now, why don't you go and meet him?" "That won't do." Dumpling immediately propped herself up and said with a serious face, "You said that I have to stay here and take care of you. How can I just leave like that?" Ziqin closed his eyes. "Anyway, the medicine has been changed. There's nothing for you to do here. She won't really blame you." Dumpling pursed her lips. "That's not the case." Ziqin didn't say anything else. Dumpling clasped her little hands and hesitated for a while. "Ziqin, you seem to be in a bad mood?" "No. Is it too boring to stay here?" "No." "Then," Dumpling pouted and pondered seriously for a while before she calmed down again. Ziqin was seriously injured and felt uncomfortable all over. It was normal for him to be in a bad mood, right? She decided not to disturb his rest. The room fell into silence again. On the other side, Chu Liyue was a little surprised after hearing Hua Shuang's words. "So you came to the Divine Ruins world with Sanson?" "Yes. But we ran into some trouble and parted ways. Originally, I wanted to contact Sanson as soon as possible and join him, but at that time I was injured and in a coma for a long time. Fortunately, someone saved me and I survived. Later on, although his body recovered, he lost contact with Sanson. It was only when he heard about the Peach Blossom Cove that he rushed over." Chu Liyue nodded in understanding. Within the Divine Ruins world, being alone was simply too dangerous, unless one was a top-notch expert. Hua Shuang had her own difficulties. Fortunately, that was all in the past. "You seem to be, about to break through to the supreme god level? Chu Luiyue asked tentatively. Hua Shuang didn't hide it and admitted frankly, Master, you're right. You're right, Master. I'm only one step away from Her Eminence. Although it was difficult to take this step, it was already very rare to be able to reach this level in such a short time. The 13 Yu guards were all very talented. In the past, they were trapped in the cultivation environment of Tianling, so the realm they could cultivate to was limited. But in the Divine Ruins world, the energy of heaven and earth was abundant, which was greatly beneficial for cultivation. Their strength also increased rapidly. And Hua Shuang was the best among them. Sanson exclaimed, Second brother, are you really going to break through to the supreme god level? Hua Shuang pondered for a moment. If I can cultivate in the Peach Blossom Cove, I should be able to smoothly break through in half a year. Everyone in the room was shocked. They all knew Hua Shuang's character. He was not a person who liked to boast. On the contrary, he was very humble most of the time. Since even he said so, then, it seemed that he was 90% confident in this matter. Sanson's face was full of admiration. Second brother, you're amazing. I'm only at level 9 now. I don't even know when I can break through to the supreme god level. Chu Luiyue silently glanced at Sanson. This child just broke through to level 7 not long ago, right? How did he break through to level 9 so quickly and plan to become a supreme god? Although people often said that there were supreme gods everywhere in the Divine Ruins world, this was ultimately an exaggeration. It was not that easy to break through to the supreme god level. Moreover, how old was Sanson now? I really don't know how Cini taught him, Hua Shuang laughed. Little Sanson, you're already better than many people. When Sanson was your age, he hadn't even broken through to level 7. The flesh on Sanson's face trembled as he tried to win back some face for himself. But at that time, I had already started to help Master manage the finances. Chu Luiyue reminded him. Sanson, back then you finished reading the Tianling Imperial Capital's accounts for the past 10 years in 2 hours. This doesn't seem to affect your cultivation, right? Sigh. Sanson shrunk his neck guiltily. Chu Luiyue teased, if this continues, you'll probably be the one who can't fight the most among the 13 Yu guards. Sanson moved his body and whispered. That might not be the case. If he cultivated seriously, he wouldn't be much worse than them, right? Oh right, who else is in the Divine Ruins world now? Chu Luiyue looked at Cini. Cini shook his head. No. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. I've already sent Lin Qifei and the others to the New Gate world. The teleportation array between the Tianling Imperial Capital and the Tianling Imperial Capital should be completed soon. By then, it will be much more convenient to travel. You can just ask them to come over. Originally, Peach Blossom Dock had a gate world that directly connected the outside of the Divine Ruins world. However, there was a problem some time ago, so it was temporarily sealed. Chu Luiyue was just worrying about this problem when a new door appeared in front of her. This time, the people from Peach Blossom Dock could first reach the New Gate world from here before heading out of the Divine Ruins world. Although it was a little troublesome to change locations, the good thing was that the distance was not too far. Furthermore, the teleportation array in the middle was gradually being built, so it was still feasible. Yes. After the lively meal, Sun Yi and the others left. Only Hua Shuang was asked to stay by Chu Luiyue. After I help Mr. Su reconstruct his body, I'll take you to see Dumpling. Hua Shuang nodded in agreement at first, then suddenly realized something. Mr. Su? Which Mr. Su? Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. Shifeng, where are the things I asked you to choose? They're over there. Come with me. Shifeng knew that this matter was very important to her, so he was very cautious and meticulous. He brought Chu Luiyue to the room next door. In the room there were 9 skeletons neatly placed. These are all carefully selected by me. They're all here. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2159. Hua Shuang stood outside the door and saw the situation in the house. Her expression was strange. After not seeing her for so long, why did Master, boom? A thunderous sound suddenly exploded in the sky. Hua Shuang immediately looked up and saw that the clear sky was now covered with dark clouds. A silver Tianlei was rolling in the clouds. With such a commotion, it must be something unusual. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, the Tianlei landed and went straight to the Yu residence. Hua Shuang's heart skipped a beat. Her gaze followed the Tianlei and found that it finally landed somewhere in the Yu residence. Boom. In an instant, silver light splashed everywhere. Hua Shuang took a few steps forward and looked over. She could vaguely see a few bright golden lights. Chu Luiyue heard the commotion and turned around to take a look. Her lips curved up. His movements are actually so fast. Looking at the situation, Rongxiu should be able to end it very quickly. After all, Rongxiu had the venerable god skeleton and Tang Ku was very strong. It would be much easier for them to progress. She retracted her gaze and looked at them one by one. She chose the most suitable one. This one. While Hua Shuangshuang was shocked by the commotion, Chu Luiyue brought the skeleton to the courtyard. She placed the skeleton on the ground and sat cross-legged. A reddish gold flame gushed out from her palm. Then, with a flick of her wrist, the flame suddenly flew up and landed lightly on the skeleton in front of her. A stage 9 skeleton naturally couldn't withstand the fire's strength, so Chu Luiyue had already wrapped it with her force. Wherever the flame passed, the skeleton became much cleaner than before. This was to expel the impurities in the skeleton and also to increase its toughness so that the following process could be carried out smoothly. Hua Shuangshuang was shocked. Rank 9 warrior? Master was helping a rank 9 warrior reconstruct his body? That seemed impossible, right? And over there, she seemed to be helping the venerable god reconstruct his body. What was going on? Mr. Su, you can come out now. Chu Luiyue said softly after he finished refining the skeleton. As soon as he finished speaking, a translucent figure appeared in the courtyard. Shifang had long known about this, but seeing Su Li with his own eyes at this time, he still felt very curious and shocked. Meanwhile, Hua Shuangshuang was completely dumbfounded. Mr. Su is a woman? He had heard of Mr. Su's name. When he heard Chu Luiyue say that he would help Mr. Su reconstruct his body, he realized that the mysterious Mr. Su was not dead. Before the waves in his heart could calm down, another wave of shock was stirred up. Su Li covered her mouth and smiled. It seems like it's better for me to appear as a man in the future to avoid scaring everyone. Chu Luiyue smiled and shook his head. I don't think Senior Tang Ku is willing. Su Li suddenly felt a little embarrassed, but she did not refute. After a short pause, she thanked Shifang again. Shifang was overwhelmed by the favor. He did not think that this figure that only existed in legends was actually so amiable and approachable. Mr. Su, please. Chu Luiyue's expression became much more serious. Su Li nodded and took the pill that Chu Luiyue had refined before. Her body moved and she overlapped with the skeleton. Chu Luiyue waved his hands lightly, and the reddish gold flames surged again. Time slowly passed and flesh gradually grew on the skeleton. Perhaps it was because of the pill's help the skeleton really made it through. Night fell and Su Li's body was finally completed. Chu Luiyue's eyes were fixed on it, not daring to relax at all. She knew that the closer it was to the end, the more she could not be careless. This pill was not easy to obtain, and Su Li's soul power was weak to begin with. If she did not succeed this time, it would have a great impact on Su Li. Kaboom. Not far away, another Tianlei fell. The next moment, a figure suddenly rushed into the sky, bathed in lightning. Chu Luiyue quickly looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. Although she could not see the face clearly, she was sure that the person was Tang Ku. The appearance of her eminence caused a great commotion. Everyone in Peach Blossom Dock City looked in the direction of the Yu residence. This commotion. Someone has broken through to her eminence? No way. This is not how her eminence breaks through. But the aura around that person is indeed that of her eminence. Just now, several Tianlei fell and a golden light appeared in the Yu residence. Could it be, the Holy Sun has made his move? Just as everyone was puzzled, the figure in the sky finally devoured the last Tianlei's energy. His figure and appearance gradually came into view. Seeing the unfamiliar face, many people looked at each other. There was no such person in Peach Blossom Dock City. At this moment, the man cupped his fists and said in a deep voice, Tang Ku of the Tang family thanks Holy Sun Yu for saving my life. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was dumbfounded. Tang family? Which Tang family? I don't think there is such a family in the Divine Ruins world. Tang? Tang Ku. This is the Holy Son of Craftsmanship, Tang Ku? Which other Tang family could it be? In this world, only one person dares to call himself Tang Ku of the Tang family. After a short moment of silence, everyone came to their senses. For a moment, the entire Peach Blossom Dock was in deep shock and excitement. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed that Tang Ku was still alive. More importantly, he said that he thanked the two people for saving his life. Didn't they say that the Yu residents had inherited Senior Tang Ku's legacy? Oh, how did he even manage to save someone? Chu Luiyue retracted his gaze and took out a 2 Tian baby. The lush green leaves swayed gently. Whoosh. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth began to rush into Su Li's body. She had not broken through to High God, so she could not use Tianlei to refine her body. Using the two Tian baby was a good choice. The rich energy and vigorous vitality flowed into Su Li's body continuously. Then she finally opened her eyes. A pair of eyes that were as gentle as spring water shone brightly. Chu Liwei was overjoyed. It's done. However, just as she was about to stop, she suddenly realized that the energy was still rushing towards Su Li. Boom! In the sky, a Tianlei suddenly appeared. Chu Liwei looked up and instantly understood what was going on. So, is she going to break through to High God? Just as the thought flashed across her mind, the Tianlei suddenly fell and went straight for Su Li. Su Li also looked up and looked at the Tianlei. There was no trace of fear on her face. Instead, there was a hint of excitement and excitement. She had always known that her talent as a martial artist was extremely average. She might not be able to break through to High God in her lifetime. But this time, is my chance finally here? Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2160. While the people in the city were still shocked by Tang Ke's appearance, another figure flew out of the Yu mansion. It was obviously a woman. Before the people could tell who it was, they saw Tianlei striking down. The woman's figure was instantly enveloped by the light. Who's that? I didn't see clearly. But it's strange. Chu Liwei stood up and looked up at the figure shrouded in the light. She only wanted to help Su Li reconstruct her body, but she did not expect that. Soon the light surged into Su Li's body and her aura surged. She had officially broken through to the High God level. Countless pairs of eyes looked at the woman. She was wearing a long dress and her hair was long enough to reach her ankles. A ruby headband was tied around her forehead. She had a beautiful face and a gentle temperament. She just stood there and even the night wind seemed to have become gentler. This woman. She's very beautiful. After a while someone spoke. But her strength is nothing in Peach Blossom Dock, right? That was the truth. There were many high gods in Peach Blossom Dock, not to mention Shangguanjing and the other high gods. This woman looked to be in her 20s. To them, breaking through to the high god level at such a young age was nothing out of the ordinary. However, as soon as the man finished speaking, he felt a chill on his back. He turned his head instinctively and saw Tang Ke looking at him. Tang Ke's expression was very calm, but when her eyes looked over, there was an invisible pressure that was hard to bear. The man who spoke panicked and his legs turned to jelly. Did he say something wrong just now? Let me introduce you. Tang Ke said. This is my wife Su Li, everyone. Su Li? Chu Liwei. She knew that this woman had been in love with Mr. Su for a long time, but wasn't she a little too fast? Why did she feel that this woman was a little thick-skinned? Su Li glared at Tang Ke. Tang Ke, what are you talking about? They hadn't even started anything yet, and they were already husband and wife? How could such a thing happen? Tang Ke was surprised. Lizzie, we have been buried together for tens of thousands of years. Aren't we husband and wife? Su Li was speechless. Chu Liwei applauded and gave him a thumbs up. How was this being thick-skinned? This was clearly being shameless. On the other side of the courtyard, Rong Xiu stood with his hands behind his back. Hearing this, he raised his eyebrows and glanced at Yan Qing behind him. Well, at least he was smarter than this. Yan Qing had a blank expression on his face. Master, did I do anything wrong? Rong Xiu shook his head. No, even if his brain was smashed he still wouldn't be enlightened, so why bother? Everyone in the Peach Blossom Dock was watching the situation. When they heard Tang Ke's words, everyone was shocked. Wasn't Tang Ke unmarried? Why did he suddenly have a wife? They even said that they had been buried together for tens of thousands of years? Then why did they come out now? In addition, this woman's attitude towards Tang Ke. Isn't it a little too casual? Isn't he just an exalted god? At this moment, Rong Xiu's figure suddenly appeared in the sky. Congratulations, Senior Tang Ke. Congratulations, Mr. Su. His thin scarlet lips curled up slightly, and his attitude was very polite. When everyone heard this, they were shocked again. Mr. Su? Damn. Don't tell me it's Mr. Su who fought with Senior Tang Ke back then? Su Li looked at the person who spoke and said seriously, It's me. Why is it strange? Everyone was speechless. It wasn't strange. It was magical. Hua Shuang's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't be blamed for overreacting just now. It was just too shocking. Didn't you see how many people were shocked speechless by the news? In comparison, his performance just now was not bad. Chu Liwei also flew over. The two seniors have successfully reconstructed their bodies, and Mr. Su has successfully become an exalted god. This is great news. This sentence could be considered as an explanation for everyone. After a short pause, everyone gradually came to their senses. Buried together for tens of thousands of years, reconstructed their bodies. In that case, not only did Master Yu obtain Senior Tang Ke's inheritance, but he also brought the two of them back? Someone exclaimed. Not only did he bring them back, but he also helped them reconstruct their bodies. Tang Ke was in a good mood and immediately said, "That's right. My wife and I are very fated with the Saint and Master Yu. Plus, we are very grateful for your help this time, so we plan to stay in Peach Blossom Dock from now on." Everyone was silent for a moment. Both of them were going to stay in Peach Blossom Dock? What did this mean? It went without saying. In the past 10,000 years, there had only been 2 weapon-refining saints in the entire Divine Ruins world. And now, both of them were going to stay in Peach Blossom Dock and become members of the Yu family. When the news spread, it would shake the entire Divine Ruins world. If the Yu family had finally gained a foothold in the Divine Ruins world before, then they were almost at the top now. Tang Ke and Su Li's attitude was very significant. Chu Liwei cupped his fists and thanked them solemnly. It's Peach Blossom Dock's blessing that the two seniors have such intentions. The news of Tang Ke and Su Li's reappearance spread throughout the Divine Ruins world at the fastest speed. Many people's first reaction was disbelief. But after asking around, they found out that it was true. Not only that, the two of them were going to stay in Peach Blossom Dock. It was obvious that they were going to stand on their side. For a moment, the entire Divine Ruins world was shaken. Everyone knew that in this way, the situation of the Divine Ruins world would definitely change greatly. And at this time, the choice to make was extremely important. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2161. Family Wei. Wei Song hurried to Wudong Garden. This was Wei Zai's residence, but Wei Qihan was the only one guarding the door. Where's the family head? He hasn't come out yet? Wei Song stood outside the courtyard and looked inside. Wei Qihan nodded. Yes. Wei Song frowned. Ever since Wei Zai returned from Peach Blossom Cove yesterday, he had locked himself in his room and hadn't come out since. No one knew what had happened to him at Peach Blossom Cove. The entire family Wei was talking about it. Wei Song was about to walk in when Wei Qihan stopped him. Elder Wei Song, the family head, said he wants to be alone. You should wait a little longer. I have something to report to the family head. This matter cannot be delayed. Wei Song frowned. Are you trying to stop me? Wei Qihan's heart trembled. After hesitating for a moment, he took a step back. I wouldn't dare. Even though they were both elders, Wei Song's status in the family Wei was revered. Wei Qihan could not compare to him. Wei Song walked straight to Wei Zai's room. At the same time, Wei Zai closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. His brows were furrowed and he looked tired. He had been in this position for a day and a night. Currently, there were 2 paths in front of him. Either he kept his promise with Rong Xiao and sent Wei Shiping to Peach Blossom Cove, or he bowed his head to Jun Jiuqing and continued to stand on his side. These 2 choices had their pros and cons for him and the entire family Wei. But he did not trust Rong Xiao, nor did he trust Jun Jiuqing. No matter what he did, he would be handing Wei Shiping over to others to do whatever they wanted with him. He would be in a passive position. Wei Zai did not want to choose either of these 2 paths. But now, everything was clearly out of his control. Patriarch? Hearing the sound outside, he finally pulled himself back from his thoughts. Elder Wei Song? Please come in. Wei Song pushed the door open and entered. As soon as he walked in, he saw the haggard Wei Zai, and the confusion in his heart deepened. What is the Patriarch worried about? After so many years, he had rarely seen Wei Zai like this. Wei Zai shook his head and rubbed his face. Nothing, it's just that. I suddenly thought of Shiping. Wei Song understood. Elder Wei Song said that he had something important to report. What is it? Wei Zai asked. Wei Song's expression instantly turned serious. It seems that the family head still doesn't know that Tang Ke and Mr. Su have appeared. Wei Zai didn't react for a moment. What did you say? The 2 of them didn't truly die back then. Instead, they each left behind a soul. Moreover, they had already reconstructed their physical bodies. It was said that Rong Xiao and Shangguan Yu had helped them. Wei Song took a deep breath. More importantly, the 2 of them said that they would stay in Peach Blossom Dock from now on. Hearing this, Wei Zai suddenly realized what had happened. He stood up abruptly. The chair behind him fell heavily to the ground from the impact. However, Wei Zhe couldn't care less at this time. What you said is all true? It's absolutely true. Now that the news has spread, everyone in the Divine Ruins world should know. Wei Song knew what he was thinking and shook his head. It can't be fake. In this world, no one would dare to impersonate Tang Ku and Mr. Su. Wei Zhe's heart sank. That's right. Even if someone ate a bear's heart and leopard's guts, they would never dare to do such a thing. Besides, everyone thought that the two of them had been dead for tens of thousands of years. Who would think of impersonating them? Everything could only prove that all of this was true. Tang Ku, Mr. Su. Wei Zhe murmured and slammed his fist on the table. When they left Tang Ku's tomb, they must have. He didn't notice it at all. Actually, he wasn't the only one. There were so many people who went to the stone forest at that time, but no one noticed anything strange. Previously, everyone was at most envious and jealous of them for obtaining Tang Ku's inheritance. Now, the only two artifact refining saints had become their people. Peach Blossom Dock was not to be trifled with, and now they were going to dominate. Wei Song looked at Wei Zhe with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. This was indeed shocking. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed over after hearing about it. However, Wei Zhe's reaction was too big. Master, what did you say to them when you went to Peach Blossom Dock? If it was really as Wei Zhe said before, that he had gone to resolve the misunderstanding, then it shouldn't be like this now, right? Wei Song felt that there was something wrong with this. Wei Zhe took a deep breath and said, nothing. Because of sheeping, I was a little estranged with them. There was also some unhappiness in Tang Ku's tomb. That's why they suspected that I was behind the Mahayana sect's incident. But now, everything has been explained clearly. Wei Song didn't believe Wei Zhe's words and said half tentatively, he said tentatively, that's good. With Tang Ku and Tang Ku's support, Rong Xiu and Shangguan you will be even more difficult to deal with in the future. Even if we can't be friends with them, we definitely can't be enemies with them. Wei Zhe closed his eyes and was silent for a long time before he said, you're right. After such a big thing happened, we still have to do something. Master, you mean? I'll leave immediately and go to Peach Blossom Dock again to give them a congratulatory gift. Take it as, for family Wei. Again? Wei Song was a little hesitant. For the current Peach Blossom Dock, it was a little too late to curry favor, right? Wei Zhe laughed self-deprecatingly. No matter what, I have to go this time. Wei Song felt that Wei Zhe was implying something, but after thinking about it, he felt that there was nothing wrong with what Wei Zhe had done. After all, this was something that would bring more benefits to the entire family Wei. Master, what do you plan to choose as a congratulatory gift? The clan stockpile? I already have a choice in my heart. Elder Wei Song, you don't have to worry about it. Wei Zhe closed his eyes. I want to rest for a while. Elder Wei Song, if there's nothing else, please go ahead. Wei Song wanted to say something, but when he saw Wei Zhe's tired expression, he swallowed his words and only nodded before turning to leave. The door closed and the room fell into a dead silence again. After a long time, Wei Zhe sighed deeply. He seemed to have aged a lot in an instant. Peach Blossom Dock. Tang Ku and Su Li's appearance caused a huge uproar in the city. However, the two people in the center of the storm chose to quietly stay in the U residence, as if they had made up their minds to live here from now on. With this matter settled, Chu Luiyue felt much more relaxed. Thus, when the matter was over, she brought Hua Shuang to find Dumpling the next morning. The only thing that Chu Luiyue did not have the strength to complain was that when they arrived outside the courtyard, more than 10 magical beasts followed behind them. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2162. Standing at the entrance of the courtyard, Chu Luiyue looked at Hua Shuang speechlessly. It was really close to where she lived. However, in this short distance, these magical beasts came to entangle him again. A few of them were still hanging on Hua Shuang's body. Shuang, why do I feel like they like you more than before? At first, she thought she was wrong, but after 2 days of observation she realized that she was right. These divine beasts, no matter what species they were or what temperament they had, all of them liked to stick to him when they met him. She wondered what kind of mysterious constitution he had. Hua Shuang laughed. Don't worry, they are very obedient. They won't cause trouble. As he spoke, he pulled a few of them off his body and put them on the ground. He turned around and said, okay, stay here. Don't go in and cause trouble. Chu Luiyue smiled. Shuang, don't worry. They dare to cause trouble anywhere in the U residence, but not here. Hua Shuang quickly understood. Because of little Dumpling? Dumpling was now a crimson gold celestial phoenix and a young master with the purest bloodline. She could be considered the most noble existence. When these demonic beasts saw her, they naturally felt a kind of reverence from the depths of their bones. Chu Liwa smiled and nodded, then walked inside. Dumpling should already know that you are here, but I asked her to take care of Zichen, so she has been staying here. She must be very happy to see you. Zichen? Hua Shuang was stunned for a moment, then understood. Is that your other contracted magical beast? Hua Shuang had heard that Chu Liwa had two divine beasts. Yes. Hua Shuang sighed. I heard that it is a legendary three-eyed eagle with the bloodline of the great phoenix dragon. It must be very extraordinary. As Chu Liwa walked in, she raised her voice and shouted. Dumpling. Look who is here. At that moment, Dumpling was about to change Zichen's bandages. When she heard the noise, her eyes lit up and she looked outside excitedly. Zichen looked up at her and reached out his hand. Give me the medicine. Dumpling retracted her gaze and avoided his hand. How can that be? You haven't recovered yet, so I'll have to do it. Zichen looked at her calmly. It's rare for friends to meet, and since you're already here, there's no reason to not meet. That's right. Dumpling thought about it and suddenly felt that Zichen's words made sense. She put the medicine aside and asked eagerly, Then why don't I go take a look first? Then I'll come back and help you change your bandages? Zichen nodded. Go ahead. I knew Zichen was the best. Dumpling immediately jumped up in joy. She turned around and ran out barefoot. In the blink of an eye, her small figure disappeared from the room. Only the crisp sound of a bell could be heard faintly. Zichen closed his eyes and planned to rest. Then, Dumpling's excited screams came clearly from outside. Das Huang. Zichen opened his eyes. Dumpling ran out and saw Hua Shuang. She was excited. Das Huang. It's really you? It's really you? When Hua Shuang saw Dumpling, she was stunned at first. Then she remembered that she had now transformed into a human. Although she looked completely different from before, and even her bloodline had changed, her aura was still very familiar. He immediately broke into a big smile and opened his arms. Little Jiao. He picked up Dumpling and weighed her in his arms. Look at me, I was so excited to see you that I forgot that you're not called Little Jiao anymore but Dumpling. Among the 13 Yu guards he was the closest to Dumpling. He was used to calling her Little Jiao and it was hard for him to change it. Dumpling giggled. It's okay. You can call me whatever you want. Hua Shuang laughed and looked at her carefully. Little Jiao, did you miss me? Within the room, a wisp of irritation flashed through Zichen's eyes. He couldn't sleep anymore. He lifted the blanket, got out of bed and walked to the door. When he arrived at the door, he saw Dumpling hugging Hua Shuang's neck and nodding. Yes. Chu Liwa saw Zichen first and said in surprise. Zichen, why did you come out? Zichen looked indifferent. There's no reason to lie down all the time when there's a guest. Besides, my injuries are almost healed. As he spoke, he looked at Hua Shuang. This is Zichen. Dumpling turned around and waved at Zichen excitedly. Let me introduce you. This is Das Huang. He used to be my underling. Chu Liwa didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dumpling, how long ago was that? Besides, Shuang used to let you have your way. Hua Shuang laughed even more happily. Master, don't worry. Little Jiao is right. I did follow Little Jiao a few years ago. Dumpling made a face proudly. Chu Liwa smiled helplessly. You're the only one who spoils her. In the past few years, the two of them had caused a lot of trouble for the demonic beasts in Tianling Imperial City. Dumpling said again. Das Huang, this is Zichen. He got injured because he tried to save me. Hua Shuang suddenly understood. I see. Dumpling patted his shoulder. Okay. I have to go back and change Zichen's bandages. I'll come find you when I'm done. Hua Shuang put Dumpling down and saluted Zichen. Thank you for taking care of Little Jiao. Zichen said indifferently. It's my pleasure. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2163. Hua Shuang was stunned for a moment. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that Zichen didn't seem to welcome her very much. Dumpling ran to Zichen's side and looked up at him. Zichen, did I wake you up just now? She remembered that Zichen was going to rest. Zichen glanced at her. No. After pausing for a moment, he casually added another sentence. Maybe it's because the wound is recovering so I can't sleep. Ah? That's true. Tuanzi thought of her injury. Every time it was time for the scab to form, the wound would feel itchy and uncomfortable. Zichen probably felt the same way. But this also means that you're almost recovered. Let's go, I'll help you change the dressing. It was always right to change the dressing and clean it up. Zichen raised his eyes and looked at Hua Shuang. This isn't appropriate, is it? You haven't seen your friends for a long time. Your injury is more important now. Dumpling still knew what was important at this critical moment. Chu Luiyue also said, Dumpling is right. You should take care of your body first. I brought Shuang here today to say hello to Dumpling. Zichen's eyes moved slightly. He nodded and turned back. Chu Luiyue looked at Hua Shuang. Zichen was injured while saving Dumpling. Dumpling has been feeling very guilty, so I asked her to stay here to take care of Zichen. Hua Shuang nodded. Dumpling is pure and kind. She must be very sad about this. This is a good thing for her. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly. Zichen's blood is very powerful. He should be able to recover soon. When the time comes, I'll send Dumpling to find you. Hua Shuang laughed. There's no hurry. Anyway, I'm relieved to see that she's fine today. Chu Luiyue raised his voice and said, Dumpling Zichen, we won't disturb you anymore. We'll leave first. Zichen had just laid down. Dumpling was holding the medicine bottle in her hand. She turned her head and responded. Okay. Chu Luiyue and Hua Shuang quickly left. Dumpling put the medicine bottle down and untied the bow around Zi's wrist. Zichen looked down at her. After a moment he asked, Actually, my injuries are almost healed. Why don't I go and tell Master? Dumpling shook her head like a rattle. No. You say 10 days, not a day. She removed the gauze and saw that Zichen's wound had indeed begun to scab. It was just that the wound was too large, so it still looked ghastly. Shuang frowned slightly. Then she carefully applied the medicine and changed the gauze to a clean one. Zichen didn't say anything else. He leaned against the headboard and his eyebrows relaxed a little. Then he heard Dumpling mumbling to herself, Anyway, Das Wang will be staying in Peach Blossom Dock from now on. It won't be too late to find him later. Zichen looked at her again. Dumpling seemed to sense his gaze. She raised her head and blinked a few times. What's wrong? Zichen, are you in a bad mood again? No. Yes. As Tuanzi spoke, she leaned forward and reached out her small hand to poke at the corner of his lips. You're not smiling. Zichen grabbed her hand, paused for a moment and said, It's just that the wound hurts a little. Dumpling immediately understood. Then she felt guilty. Was I too rough just now? Then I'll be more careful, Zichen replied with Then he let go of her hand and closed his eyes gently. Dumpling lowered her head and treated the wound more carefully. Chu Luiyue, who had just walked out of the courtyard, heard this and looked back with a strange expression. Was she hallucinating? Did Zichen just say that the wound hurts a little? Was there a mistake? This man was a tough guy who wouldn't cry out even if he was smashed to pieces. The wound had healed a lot. Why would he cry out in pain? Hua Shuang also stopped and followed Chu Luiyue's gaze. Master, what's wrong? He didn't know Zichen, so he naturally didn't notice anything wrong. Chu Luiyue shook her head. Nothing. Let's go. There are more and more strange things happening recently. After walking for a while, Hua Shuang opened her mouth. Master, Zichen, he doesn't seem to welcome me. How can that be? Chu Luiyue smiled. Zichen has always been cold to everyone. You don't have to worry about it. Hua Shuang was relieved. That's good. He had a special physique and had a strong affinity with all kinds of magical beasts. Only when he met Zichen did he feel that something was wrong. He was probably wrong. After parting with Hua Shuang, Chu Luiyue returned to her courtyard. Rong Xiu was writing a list for Yanqing. That's all for now. You must send it here within 5 days. Yanqing took the list with both hands and quickly put it away. Yes. Then he respectfully retreated. When he came out, he bumped into Chu Luiyue. He bowed and left in a hurry. Chu Luiyue looked at his back and asked curiously, What did you do for him? What did you ask him to do? Why are you in such a hurry? Nothing. He just went back to the Yuntian Tower to get some things. Rong Xiu smiled faintly. They are all things that Senior Tang Ke wants. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Why didn't Senior Tang Ke tell me what he needs? Doesn't Peach Blossom Dock have any? Rong Xiu said, He just came here. He came just now. You weren't here, so I agreed. He just needs some materials for refining. Peach Blossom Dock has some, but not many. Yuntian Tower happened to have some in stock, so I asked Yanqing to get them. I see. Tang Ke was a blacksmith. Of course, he needed things related to refining. Although Peach Blossom Dock was rich in energy, it was still inferior to the Yuntian Tower in terms of materials. Chu Luiyue touched his chin. In that case, should I prepare some for Mr. Su? That's not necessary. Senior Tang Ku already asked for them for Mr. Su. After all, both of them were blacksmithing saints and had fought with each other before. No one knew each other better than they did in this regard. Chu Liwei clicked his tongue. Senior Tang Ku is really something. He had just turned her into his wife, and now he was chasing after her. Su Li had not seen him for the past 2 days, but he had come up with such a plan. Even Chu Liwei had to admit that she was impressed. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved up as he looked at her. Senior Tang Ku is planning to make some supremacy divine artifacts. Speaking of this, Chu Liwei furrowed her brows. Making a supremacy divine artifact was not a problem for Tang Ku. More importantly, what about the divine artifacts? According to Su Li, they were able to make 10 divine artifacts because of the sudden appearance of the armillary shield. But now, it was probably impossible to refine a sacred artifact. Suddenly she thought of something. By the way, do you remember Senior Tang Ku said that Taizu is very likely to become a blacksmith saint? The wonderful book house. Chapter 2164. Rong Xiu nodded. He did say that. This sentence was said in front of everyone at that time, and it was precisely because of this that Shangguanjing's reputation in the Divine Ruins world was also great. Everyone was secretly watching to see if he could really successfully break through to become a refining saint. Chu Liwei hesitated for a moment and briefly repeated what Su Li had said before. If what Mr. Su said is true, there should be no one in the current Divine Ruins world who can successfully refine a sacred artifact. Then what Mr. Tang Ku said, in a sense, has become an unachievable expectation. Rong Xiu's eyes moved slightly. Mr. Su said that to you? Chu Liwei nodded. Rong Xiu paused for a moment and smiled. Then she probably misunderstood something. Chu Liwei was stunned. Senior Tang Ku also mentioned this to me before, but his statement is a little different from Mr. Su's. Do you still remember the pavilion in the air that appeared in the Red Moon Desert before? Of course Chu Liwei remembered. Everything that happened there could be said to be vivid in her mind. Then, what's the problem? Rong Xiu stretched out his hand and made a gesture. Chu Liwei instantly realized something. You mean that square? Rong Xiu nodded. Obviously the celestial shield came from there. Since the appearance of the celestial shield back then could prompt Senior Tang Ku to refine the 10 great sacred artifacts, then the rest might not be impossible. At that time, Senior Tang Ku also said that there was a power of the same origin as the celestial shield in that square. Perhaps, that was the secret of the sacred artifact. Chu Liwei was stunned for a long time, and a huge storm was set off in her heart. Yes, no one knew better than her that the Black Jade Square was indeed closely related to the celestial shield. In that case, in the world there is still a chance to refine a sacred artifact? Rong Xiu smiled and looked outside. In theory, yes. However, I'm afraid it's still extremely difficult to achieve. Chu Liwei fell into deep thought. Although Tang Ku and Mr. Su's level in refining was comparable, in many other things, Tang Ku was obviously more experienced and far-sighted, and could make more accurate judgments. Su Li had been in a deep sleep for 10,000 years, so it was normal that she did not know anything about the world. Since Tang Ku said so, there must be a reason. If it was really because the armillary heaven shield was peeled off from the Black Jade Square that gave birth to the 10 great sacred artifacts, then, there might be an even more astonishing power stored in the Black Jade Square? That's not an illusion. Chu Liwei said firmly. It must really exist. Yan Qing left Peach Blossom Dock and went straight to the Yuntian Tower. However, just as he was about to reach the Yuntian Tower, he suddenly changed direction and arrived in front of a door. The Yuntian Tower guarded 3 door realms, and the one that Yan Qing came to was the most confidential. In the entire Yuntian Tower, there were very few people who had the right to enter and leave. A guard in black armor was in charge of guarding the door. When he saw Yan Qing, he immediately bowed respectfully. Greetings, Lord Yan Qing. Yan Qing nodded. I'm going out for a while. Yes. The guard did not ask any questions and let Yan Qing pass. The ripples shook and Yan Qing's figure disappeared behind the door. Country Yaoqin. As night fell, the originally noisy streets gradually became deserted. Shops of all sizes on both sides of the street also closed for business. Yan Gu locked the door and hummed a tune as he leisurely returned to his residence. However, just as he returned to his bedroom, he immediately sensed that something was wrong. Who is it? He spoke with extreme vigilance. A figure walked out of the darkness, and a handsome face gradually appeared. When he saw the person's face clearly, Yan Gu instantly heaved a sigh of relief and patted his chest. Yan Qing, are you trying to scare me to death? He was still wondering who it was. Master has orders. When Yan Qing spoke, Yan Ji's expression immediately turned serious. What is it? Yan Qing took out a list and handed it over. It was the list that Rong Xiu had given him previously. This is what Master wants. Go back and get it as soon as possible. Yan Gu received it with both hands respectfully. After looking at it carefully, he looked at Yan Qing in surprise. These are all top-notch goods. Why does Master suddenly want so much? Yan Qing's expression was cold. Master's intentions are not something that you and I can guess. Yan Gu snorted. You have been by Master's side for the longest time. You have already guessed countless times. What's wrong with me guessing once? You have 3 days. Yan Qing could not be bothered to talk nonsense. If you are late, don't worry. 3 days is more than enough. Yan Gu kept the list and raised his eyebrows proudly. Leave this to me. I guarantee that there will be no problem. Master said that once this deal is over, you don't have to stay in Yaoqian anymore. Yan Qing's words immediately shocked Yan Gu. Really? Yan Qing nodded. Master means that it is time for you to go back. Yan Gu slapped his thigh. He was so emotional that tears flowed down his face. I have waited for this day for so long. Only God knew that he had been bored to death after staying here for so many years. Master had finally spoken. He was so emotional. Whoa. Yan Qing's expression was still cold, but he did not hide the disdain in his eyes. Yan Gu did not care about this. After all, Yan Qing had been like an iceberg for so many years. He happily leaned forward and asked, What's the matter? The Master should be going back soon, right? Where is Madam? She should be with you, right? Yan Qing took half a step back and turned to leave. Just wait over there. I will come back to collect the items 3 days later at the same time. With that, the air vibrated and his figure disappeared from the room. Don't go. Finish what you were saying. Yan Gu shouted twice. However, Yan Qing left quickly and did not even look at him. Really? With this temper, he will not be able to find a wife in the future. Yan Gu snorted. Then he remembered what he had just said and became happy again. He had been waiting for this day for so long that his wrinkles had increased by quite a few. Now he was no longer in the mood to sleep. He simply packed up and set off quickly. After Wei Zhe left Qinggu Slope, he went straight to Peach Blossom Cove. Of course, this time he brought Wei Shiping with him. Father, what do you think Rong Xiu is planning? Wei Shiping's voice came from the universe ring. He sounded nervous and doubtful. Wei Zhe shook his head. I don't know either. Rong Xiu was very scheming. He could not see anything. But now that Peach Blossom Cove and Yuntian Tower have joined forces, their forces are growing stronger day by day. It is not easy to provoke them. He should have other plans. After all, if he really wanted to kill you, he would have done it long ago. He would not have waited until now. Before he could finish, a gust of cold air came. Wei Zhe stood still and looked in front of him in shock. Who is it? Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2165. Wei Zhe, how dare you? A cold and lazy voice sounded. Wei Zhe was shocked. Jun Jiuqing? He knew that something was wrong and turned to run. However, he found that he couldn't move. The space around him had been frozen. Looking at the faint light in the surrounding space, Wei Zhe became more and more nervous. This was Jun Jiuqing's god domain. He quickly mobilized the force in his body and summoned his god domain at the same time, wanting to fight against it. However, what shocked him even more was that he was suppressed by Jun Jiuqing's god domain and couldn't summon his god domain. The importance of a god domain in a fight between god-level experts was self-evident. Once one side had the upper hand in this aspect, the victory was basically locked in. It was the same now. Wei Zhe's heart was filled with panic. He knew that Jun Jiuqing was very strong, but he didn't expect him to be so strong. Such a god domain pressure could effortlessly crush him. Jun Jiuqing's figure slowly appeared. He looked at Wei Zhe with a lazy expression, but his eyes were extremely cold as he said slowly, "Don't worry." He said slowly, "It seems that you've forgotten what I said earlier." Wei Zhe wanted to defend himself, but the moment he met Jun Jiuqing's gaze, he knew that Jun Jiuqing must know everything. His throat tightened and his heart beat violently. The wound on his arm seemed to hurt again. I was forced to do it. Wei Zhe didn't want to fight Jun Jiuqing head-on. That was tantamount to courting death. His mind spun wildly, searching for all kinds of reasons. Rong Xiu and Rong Xiu know about the Mahayana sect. If I don't do as he says, he will make this matter public. At that time, my whole family Wei and I will suffer a huge blow. Jun Jiuqing suddenly laughed, his expression mocking and contemptuous. The only one who will be criticized is yourself. So what if you have a family Wei? After all, you've been keeping this from the family Wei from beginning to end. You're just worried that you'll be banished by the family Wei once this matter is exposed. Wei Zai's face turned pale, and the rest of his words were stuck in his throat. Jun Jiuqing was right. This was what he was most worried about. Arranging informants in the Mahayana sect was not a big deal in itself. But more importantly, that person had attacked Chu Luiyue. This could be considered a big trouble, and even provoked other aristocratic families because of it. Once everyone knew that he was the mastermind, they would definitely launch a crusade against the family Wei. When the time came, the family Wei and the others would most likely push him out to protect themselves. Then he would really be alone and helpless. So after weighing the pros and cons, he could only compromise with Rong Xiu. I warned you back then not to get involved in this mess. You didn't listen, so who can you blame? Jun Jiuqing stretched out his hand. Give me that thing. What he wanted was the hammer. Wei Zai instinctively chose to refuse. No. What are you trying to do? Wei Shiping was still in there. He did not dare to think about the consequences of falling into Jun Jiuqing's hands under such circumstances. Jun Jiuqing's lips curled into a sinister smile, but his voice was unquestionable. I'll say it one last time. Give it to me. Wei Zai was deeply conflicted. This thing originally belonged to Jun Jiuqing. If it had been before, Wei Zai would have agreed to it without a second thought. But it was different now. He was very worried about what Jun Jiuqing would do. Family, I was just confused. Please let me go this time. I promise. Jun Jiuqing's patience had run out. He gently raised his hand, and the surrounding space instantly began to crumble. A terrifyingly powerful aura covered the sky. In an instant, several bloody wounds appeared on Wei Zai's body. Screech. The half-folded divine vulture suddenly appeared. The thick smell of blood made it very excited. Its bloodthirsty eyes stared fixedly at Wei Zai. Wei Zai's heart skipped a beat. In the next instant, the half-folded divine vulture pounced on him. Almost at the same time, an extremely sharp aura flew over. Wei Zai felt a chill on his wrist. When he looked down, he realized that Jun Jiuqing had cut off his hand without hesitation. Then, intense pain shot through his body. However, Wei Zai could no longer care about himself. He could only look ahead in horror. His hand was crushed by a terrifying aura in midair and instantly exploded. The interspatial ring on top of his hand flew to Jun Jiuqing. Jun Jiuqing raised his hand. He did not touch the blood-stained interspatial ring. Instead, he pointed at it. Bang! The interspatial ring shattered. Everything that had been stored inside flew out. That included the iron hammer. Jun Jiuqing put it away. Then, without even looking at it, he waved his sleeves and burned the rest of the items to ashes. Jun Jiuqing. You. Wei Zai panicked when he saw that Wei Shiping had fallen into Jun Jiuqing's hands. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the half-folded divine vulture pounced. Although Wei Zai was quite powerful, he had already been injured. Now, his mind was in a mess and he had basically lost his ability to fight. The half-folded divine vulture did not waste too much time killing him. Jun Jiuqing glanced over indifferently. A cold smile appeared on his lips. The flesh of a god-level expert tastes better after all. Screech. The half-folded divine vulture screeched. Wei Zai's voice gradually became softer. Jun Jiuqing said indifferently. Wei Shiping, do you see that? This is what you get for having disloyal thoughts. Remember, your father died because of you. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2166. Peach Blossom Cove. Chu Luiyue was cultivating in her room. A silver Xian formation was quietly floating in front of her. The Xian formation was incomparably complicated and dazzling. Unfortunately, it wasn't complete and there were a few areas that seemed to be incomplete. Chu Luiyue had already stared at it for a long time and her brows were slightly knitted. No, it's not like this. This incomplete Xian formation was the Sky Shuttle formation. Chu Luiyue relied on her memory and barely sketched out the rough outline. However, because she wasn't strong enough, she couldn't display its complete appearance. When she was at Lingxiao College, she repaired the Sky Shuttle formation with De Bao's help. If she wanted to use it completely, it would be much more difficult. After Chu Luiyue returned from the Red Moon Desert, she studied the Sky Shuttle formation whenever she had time. Unfortunately, she didn't make much progress. Recalling the scene of Rong Xiu effortlessly using the sky shuttle formation, Chu Liwei felt a headache coming on. The gap between two people was simply too great. She felt that Rong Xiu didn't spend much time on cultivation, but his strength in all aspects had been increasing at an astonishing speed. Every time she thought that their strength should be close, Rong Xiu would always display an even more shocking level. It was only in front of him that Chu Liwei experienced what was called frustration. "You're? Little you're?" A familiar voice sounded. Chu Liwei waved her hand and dispersed the Shen formation in front of her. She stood up and walked outside. "Mr. Su? Why are you here?" Su Li took a step forward and looked a little embarrassed. "Little you, I'm here to ask you for a favor." Chu Liwei asked curiously, "What favor?" "Just say it." Su Li bit her lips and said, "I need some materials for refining. Do you have any here?" Chu Liwei was stunned. Su Li explained, "It's like this, Tang Ke seems to be preparing to refine tools recently and I also want to, but I'm lacking some things so I wonder if you have any?" Chu Liwei was even more puzzled. "Senior Tang Ke asked for it from Rong Xiu before and also asked for one for you. Don't you know?" Su Li was stunned. "Really?" "Of course. I saw it with my own eyes that day." As Chu Liwei spoke, he suddenly thought of something and the corner of his mouth twitched. "So, Senior Tang Ke hasn't told you?" Su Li shook her head. Chu Liwei suddenly felt as if he had accidentally done something wrong. "So, Tang Ke didn't say it on purpose and planned to give it to Su Li as a gift?" Chu Liwei coughed and asked awkwardly, "Mr. Su, can you pretend that you don't know about this?" Su Li was speechless. As intelligent as she was, she had also guessed something at this moment, and her face reddened. I only know that he is preparing to refine a weapon, but I don't know about this. It just so happened that she had just recovered her physical body and broken through to the high god level, so she was itching for a fight. She had planned to ask Chu Liwei for some materials so that she could find an opportunity to have a good competition with Tang Ke. But who knew? Chu Liwei sized her up and asked, "Senior Tang Ke seems to have a big lineup this time?" "Yes. He plans to start refining weapons and returning Dragon Stream tomorrow. It seems that Sheng Guanjing and the others will also be there." Chu Liwei nodded in understanding. It was the dream of countless weapon refiners to be able to see someone like Tang Ke refine a weapon with their own eyes. Of course, they wouldn't miss this opportunity. It seemed that she would have to go and see it when the time came. "Don't worry, Senior Tang Ke has always been thinking about you. You don't have to worry about the refining materials," Chu Liwei said, and then thought of the conversation with Rong Xiu before. "By the way, there's something," she briefly repeated the matter to Su Li. After hearing it, Su Li's face was also filled with shock. "Really? If that's the case, then, is it really possible to refine a new sacred artifact in this world?" Chu Liwei shook her head. "It's hard to say. After all, on the Black Jade Plaza, only this armillary shield fell off. Even if it still contains the power to refine a sacred artifact, it probably can't be used by humans. Otherwise, the Divine Ruins world wouldn't have made any progress in this aspect for the past 10,000 years. "That's true." Su Li seemed to be deep in thought. Suddenly she thought of something and asked, "Since that's the case then, if we go to that place again wouldn't there be a chance?" Chu Liu's heart skipped a beat. "To tell you the truth, I have the same plan. Since the armillary heaven shield came from above, then the Black Jade Square must exist, including the palace. It must be real. It was just that she didn't know where that place was or where she had to go to find it. There didn't seem to be such an existence in the Divine Ruins world. She had always felt that the Bao and the others should know something, but she hadn't had the time to inquire about it yet. Perhaps, it was time to find some time to ask." Soon it was the second day. Early in the morning, many people in Peach Blossom Dock City came out of their homes and rushed in the same direction. They had already heard that Tang Ke was planning to refine artifacts at Qingshui Cliff today, so they were all in high spirits and wanted to see the elegance of a weapon-refining saint. Even if they could only take a few glances from afar, they would have no regrets. The people from the 13U also planned to join in the fun. Yu Jiu hugged the wooden sword and went to Cin Yi's side with an eager face. "Big brother, I heard that Senior Tang Ke is not only refining one divine artifact this time. Possible. Can I ask Senior Tang Ke to use the leftover materials to refine a sword for me? Or Mr. Su can do it too." Mr. Su was also a weapon-refining saint anyway, and because of Chu Liwei he was very good to the 13U. She should be willing to help him with this. Cin Yi glanced at him indifferently. "Isn't your sword still fine?" "How is it fine?" Yu Jiu immediately pulled out the wooden sword from his arms, his face full of indignation. "There are cracks on it. With a flick of his wrist, Tsunyi took out a new wooden sword and handed it over. Then changed to this. Yu-Gi-Oh! He really didn't want to use this lousy wooden sword anymore. Tsunyi looked up slightly. You don't want it? Yes, I really want it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Forced a smile on his face and took the wooden sword with both hands. Thank you, big brother. Tsunyi nodded. If it's not enough, I have more here. Yu-Gi-Oh! Wanted to cry. Big brother is so good to me. Thank you, big brother. Little Hachi and Shifang also walked over. Where's 13? I didn't see him after looking around. He's been running around Qingshui Cliff these days. A look of understanding suddenly appeared on their faces. So he had already gone there. Second brother isn't here either. He seems to have gone to tame beasts again. Shifang said. Everyone had already gotten used to this. Hua Shuangshuang had spent more time with the demonic beasts than with them. Tsunyi took the lead and walked forward. The rest of the group followed suit. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2167. When they arrived at Qingshui Cliff, there were already quite a few people there. Most people didn't dare to get close. Those who could come close were all from the U residence. Sansan and Shirsan were already waiting there. Yo, why didn't third brother stay at the U residence to tinker with the abacus today? Little Hachi blinked and teased. Sansan chuckled. This is a rare opportunity. Shouldn't you come and take a look? Little Hachi giggled. Don't we know you? Isn't it because your little treasure vault is hidden under Qingshui Cliff? Are you worried that Senior Tang Ke's artifact refinement will cause too much of a commotion? Sansan coughed and hurriedly said, Shh, lower your voice. It won't be good if Senior Tang Ke hears. That's not a little treasure vault. That's a big one. Although he knew that with Tang Ke's strength, it was unlikely that he would lose control. But there was always a possibility, right? He would feel more at ease if he came over to watch. Little Hachi tucked her hair behind her ears and raised her chin. There, Senior Tang Ke is behind us. Sansan immediately looked back guiltily, but he didn't see Tang Ke's figure. Only then did he realize that Little Hachi was joking. You're joking about your third brother again. Little Hachi pinched his chubby cheeks and smiled. Third brother has the best temper, ha. Sansan pulled her hand down. Speak properly. Don't get touchy. What will happen if others see? Although he said that, there wasn't a hint of anger on his face. There was only helpless doting. Little Hachi giggled. The people from the 13th U residence didn't have any temper with Little Hachi. Other than Tsunyi, who could suppress her, the others couldn't do anything about her and could only dote on her. At this moment, a figure suddenly flitted past the corner of her eye. Little Hachi raised her eyebrows in surprise and muttered, Didn't he leave a few days ago? Sansan turned around. You mean Yanqing? He came back last night. I heard that the things that Senior Tang Ke needed this time were all brought back by him from the Yuntian Tower. Hey, that's not right. How did you know he left a few days ago? Sansan looked at Little Hachi strangely. She usually didn't seem to care about these things. Little Hachi crossed her arms and snorted. The U estate is only so big and there are only so many people. What's so strange about knowing all this? That's true. Sansan didn't think too much about it. Don't worry, if there's any treasure later, I'll definitely give it to you first. Little Hachi's eyebrows relaxed. Thank you, third brother. She was born enchanting and beautiful. Just by standing there without even saying a word, she would automatically attract everyone's attention. There were already quite a few gazes in their direction. However, Little Hachi was already immune to this kind of gaze, so she didn't take it to heart. Chu Luiwer and Rong Xiu came with Tang Ke and Su Li. Seeing Su Li's appearance, the crowd became restless again. That's Mr. Su, right? I heard that his strength is similar to Senior Tang Ke's. What are his plans today? The two of them are husband and wife. What's so strange about them coming together? That's right, I almost forgot about that. The main thing is that Mr. Su is a woman. It will take some time for him to accept it. Everyone was discussing. Su Li thought that she would be angry when she heard this, but she realized that she wasn't. She only felt her face heat up. She thought about it and didn't know what to say. She glanced over and saw that Tang Ke seemed to be smiling. She snorted in her heart. I must win against him later. I'll let him know how powerful I am. The few of them came to Qingshui Cliff. After a simple greeting, Tang Ke decided to start refining. Everyone quietened down and waited nervously. Red Moon Desert. Under the lake. Lan Xiao conjured a mirror in his hand and admired his face from all angles. He was satisfied. TSK. How beautiful. Bang. Along with this crisp sound, the mirror in his hand suddenly shattered. Lan Xiao immediately let go and flashed to the side. Big Bao. What are you doing? Dugu Mabao sat cross-legged, closed his eyes and said word by word, You're disturbing my rest. Lan Xiao pointed at him with a trembling finger. You didn't even open your eyes. How can I affect you by looking in the mirror? Dugu Mabao's tone was as calm as usual. You're noisy. I think so too. Diwu Zhangzi added, Lan Xiao, there are 24 hours in a day and you're looking in the mirror for 11 hours. The remaining 2 hours are spent praising yourself. It's fine if it's just 1 or 2 days, but it's been so long. Lan Xiao, aren't you tired? What's so tiring about this? I've reconstructed my divine body now. Lan Xiao snorted. Don't forget that you helped me reconstruct my appearance. He didn't care what they thought. He liked it anyway. Sai, you guys can't have this kind of trouble anymore. Lan Xiao lay down, rested his head on his arms and crossed his legs. When Diwu reconstructs his divine body, we can think of a way to get out of this damn place. Speaking of this, Dugu Mabao suddenly opened his eyes. It's not time yet. Of course I know. Before Lan Xiao could finish his sentence, he suddenly felt the ground shake violently. Everyone's expression changed. What's wrong? Diwu Zhangzi frowned and asked. Is it Wei Yu again? How long has it been? Dugu Mabao quickly got up and looked up. It's not Wei Yu. He slowly clenched his fists. That thing is here. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2168. Peach Blossom Dock. Above Qingshui Cliff, Tang Ke stood in midair. He looked at Su Li and smiled. Lizzie, we didn't decide the winner last time. Why don't we do it again today? Su Li had planned to do so, but she didn't expect Tang Ke to suggest it. Her eyes lit up. Sure. Hearing this, the surrounding crowd immediately boiled over. The two of them are going to compete again? I heard that the two of them refined 5 divine artifacts each 10,000 years ago. I wonder if it will happen again this time? I don't want 5 or 10. As long as I can witness the birth of a divine artifact, I will have no regrets in my life. I wonder who will win this time. To be fair, let's use the same thing. Tang Ke said and handed over a universe ring. I borrowed this from the saint. One for me and one for you. Su Li had heard about this from Chu Luiyue, so she wasn't surprised by Tang Ke's behavior. But when she looked up and saw the joy in Tang Ke's eyes, she remembered that Chu Luiyue had asked her to pretend that she didn't know. She raised her eyebrows slightly and showed a surprised expression. Is there mine too? Tang Ke smiled and raised his chin. See if you like it. Su Li was also curious. She separated a part of her consciousness and looked into the universe ring. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked up at Tang Ke in shock. Her beautiful eyes were full of disbelief. This time she wasn't pretending. She was really shocked. Seeing her reaction, Tang Ke was delighted, and the smile on his face became wider. How is it? Do you like it? Su Li's lips moved. She was full of excitement and excitement. She looked at the universe ring in her hand and couldn't bear to put it down. The joy in her eyes was almost overflowing. I like it, she exclaimed simply and straightforwardly. The refining materials in the ring were all rare and precious. Even she couldn't help but exclaim, it's really rare to be able to get these. You said that you borrowed these from the saint? Tang Ke nodded. Su Li took a deep breath and thanked Rong Xiu earnestly. At the same time, she sighed with emotion. It said that the Yuntian Tower has been passed down for thousands of years and has a deep heritage. Now that I see it, it really lives up to its reputation. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly. It's a waste to leave these things there. It would be best if they could be used by the two of you. Su Li let out a long sigh in her heart. Any one of these items was a treasure that was hard to come by in a lifetime. However, in Rong Xiu's words, it seemed to have become a worthless object. This is really... Chu Luiyue was confused as she watched from the side. At first, when she saw Su Li's reaction, she thought that she was cooperating with Tang Ke. At that time, she even silently sighed in her heart that her acting was not bad. However, the development that followed made her realize that Su Li's surprise and joy did not seem to be fake. One had to know that Su Li was a weapon-refining saint. She had seen countless treasures used to refine artifacts. What kind of treasure could make her so excited and happy? What kind of treasure could it be? Chu Luiyue glanced at Rong Xiu suspiciously. That day he only said that he wanted Yan Qing to go back and get some things. It seemed very casual, so she did not take it to heart. But now, whoosh! Su Li took out a sword embryo from her universe ring. This sword embryo was ice blue and looked rather blunt. It was of excellent quality. If one looked closely, they could even see the twinkling stars on it. A faintly sharp aura spread out from it. Star Darkness Sword Embryo? A voice full of surprise came. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that Sheng Guanjing had already come near at some point. Sheng Guanjing's eyes were fixed on the sword embryo, and his eyes were filled with unconcealed surprise and admiration. Chu Luiyue knew him too well. This was the expression of seeing a peerless treasure. Taizu, is this Star Darkness Sword Embryo very powerful? It's more than powerful. Sheng Guanjing's eyes were still unwilling to move away. He clicked his tongue. This sword embryo was born naturally. It gathered endless power of heaven and earth and turned into sword qi. Once it is refined into a sword, it will be extremely sharp. As long as there are no accidents, this thing will definitely be refined into a venerable divine weapon. Chu Luiyue immediately understood. No wonder. In that case, this Star Darkness Sword Embryo was indeed a rare treasure. Sheng Guanjing stroked his beard and glanced at Rong Xiu sourly. Sigh, I've only heard of this thing. I've only seen it today. If he had known that Rong Xiu had it, he would have asked for it earlier. Hearing this, Su Li immediately handed over the Star Darkness Sword Embryo. Shengguan, if you want it, this is for you. Sheng Guanjing hurriedly waved his hand to refuse. Mr. Su, how can I accept this? The Star Darkness Sword Embryo is extremely precious, and it's Senior Tang Ke's feelings for you. I have more. Su Li said in a gentle voice. Sheng Guanjing's expression froze. What? Su Li took a few steps forward and stuffed the Star Darkness Sword Embryo into Sheng Guanjing's hands. Then, she took out an almost identical Star Darkness Sword Embryo from the Universe Ring. Here, I have more. Sheng Guanjing's eyelids twitched. You have two? No. Su Li waved the Universe Ring on her hand. Swoosh, swoosh. A few icy blue lights flashed and everyone was dazzled. When they saw the scene in front of them clearly, they couldn't help but gasp. In front of Su Li, there were 5 Star Darkness Sword Embryos hanging neatly. I have a lot here. It doesn't matter if I give you one. Sheng Guanjing unconsciously clenched the Star Darkness Sword Embryo in his hand. Then he stiffened his neck and looked at Rong Xiu again. These are all? They were all taken from Rong Xiu? According to what Tang Ke had said before, he had divided the things into 2 portions and gave one to Su Li, which was exactly the same. If Su Li had 6 Star Darkness Sword Embryos, then he should have 6 as well. In total, there were 12 of them. Chu Luiyue was also shocked. Rong Xiu had taken out all his wealth? No, even those first-rate families might not have such a storage, right? Looking at Rong Xiu's casual manner, Chu Luiyue was sure that it was not difficult for him to take out all these things at once. In fact, he might even have more in stock. Although Chu Luiyue had been married to Rong Xiu for a long time, she had never taken the initiative to ask about the Yuntian Tower's collection. It was only now that she realized that she had underestimated the Yuntian Tower's foundation from the beginning. No, to be more precise, all of these now completely belonged to Rong Xiu. Other than the Star Darkness Sword Embryo, there were probably many other treasures hidden in Tang Ke and Su Li's Universe Rings. When all of these were added up, there was no doubt that it would be an extremely shocking amount. Su Li looked at Chu Luiyue and said with an envious expression. Little you, your husband is so rich. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2169. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Thank you, I only found out today. She thought of the little stock she had and fell silent. Compared to this person, she was so poor that she couldn't even begin to compare. Perhaps only the herbs and the small space under Qingshui Cliff could make a comeback. But in the end, it was Sanson's good luck that allowed her to take it for herself. And what Rong Xiu took out could no longer be described as good luck. No matter how heaven-defying his luck was, he had never heard of someone who could pick up a treasure like the Star Darkness Sword Embryo like cabbage. Chu Luiyue finally understood why Su Li had reacted like that just now. Rong Xiu's lips curled up into a smile. Senior Shengguan, if you want, I'll ask Yanqing to send you one later. Sheng Guanjing's forehead twitched violently. Really? How many treasures did this kid have? He thought that Rong Xiu had already taken out everything, but he didn't expect that there were more. Su Li's eyes were also bright. Saint, I've used up all of these. Do you still have more? Rong Xiu nodded. Of course. Great. The only thing Su Li was interested in her life was refining artifacts. Forget about sleeping for 10,000 years, now that she finally had a body again, she had long been itching to do it. Now that the opportunity was in front of her, she could play to her heart's content. When she smiled, the dimples at the corners of her mouth deepened, and she looked more lively than her usual gentle appearance. Tang Ku raised his eyebrows when he saw her happy. If he had known that she was so easy to coax, he would have asked for more from Master. He cupped his fists and said to Rong Xiu and Shang Guanyu, "Thank you for your kindness. Previously, I am indebted to the two of you for your care. In order to express my gratitude, I will give all the divine weapons that I have refined this time to Lord Yu and the Holy Sun as a return gift." As soon as he said that, the noisy crowd suddenly fell silent. In an instant, everyone's expressions seemed to have frozen. At first glance, the scene seemed to have frozen. What did Tang Ku just say? This time he was going to give away all the divine artifacts he had forged? Whenever he attacked, it would be at least a venerable artifact. Just the number of star nether sword embryos was already so shocking. If he could really refine all of these, it would definitely be a terrifying number. Chu Luiyue was also dumbfounded. For us. Tang Ku nodded. Not bad. Speaking of which, these things originally belonged to the Holy Sun, and I'm only using them to refine them. I hope the two of you don't mind. Everyone was in a mess, looking at Tang Ku with a strange expression. Disdain? Who in the world would dare to despise him? To be able to ask him to help refine a divine artifact was something that many people could only dream of. Now he had taken the initiative to offer to refine artifacts, and not just one. Su Li immediately agreed. That's exactly what I was planning to do. In any case, once these things are refined, I won't be able to use them myself. Little you, I'll just give them to you. I just want to enjoy myself. Chu Liwei coughed, but before she could speak, Rong Xiu smiled and nodded. Then I'll have to thank the two seniors. Chu Liwei glanced at her man from the corner of her eyes. He couldn't be doing this on purpose, right? Rong Xiu's expression was as calm and magnanimous as usual. As if he had sensed her gaze, he also looked over. The moment the two of them looked at each other, Chu Liwei instantly confirmed. This man had indeed thought of this long ago. These are the two seniors' kind intentions. Chu Liwei. What he said was so reasonable that she actually couldn't refute it? Rong Xiu slightly raised his chin. There may be a lot of things, so you can first think about how to deal with and distribute them. Chu Liwei. Asking the two saint refiners in the world to help refine artifacts, and in the end saying that there were too many of them and that they should plan early. This man really wasn't afraid of being envied by the world. Boom. Just as she was thinking, she suddenly heard a thunderous explosion in the sky. She quickly looked up and saw that the clear blue sky was now covered with dark clouds. Within a short period of time, countless silver heavenly lightning bolts rushed over in response to the summons. Chu Liwei held her breath. This is the strength of a saint refiner? Almost at the same time, Su Li also began. With a thought, she raised a hand and gently waved it upwards. In an instant, there seemed to be an invisible hand in the sky, pushing away the countless Tianlei that had gathered in the middle. The two sides were clearly separated and resplendent. Half belonged to Tang Ku, and the other half belonged to her. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. This was the first time she had seen such a scene with her own eyes. With a flip of her palm, she easily stirred and controlled countless Tianlei. In the world, only a saint refiner could have such strength. Then Su Li's fingertips moved. 5 Tianlei fell down at the same time, each rushing towards the 5-star dark sword embryos in front of her. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Su Li was actually planning to refine 5 divine artifacts at the same time? On the other side, Tang Ku's sleeves fluttered, and those Tianlei also fell down. Suddenly, an icy blue light flew out and headed straight for Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue raised her hand and took that thing in her hand. For the sake of fairness, I will also refine these 5. Master Yu, if you are interested in the remaining one, you can play with it. Tang Ku's low and deep voice sounded clearly in everyone's ears. For a moment, everyone's expressions became even more strange. Chapter 2170. Meeting Rong Xiu's gaze, Chu Liyue instantly confirmed her guess. Her eyelids twitched, and she felt that it was a waste of time and energy for her to ask this question. If he could take out so much, would he still be short of her share? In the end, she was too poor. She didn't understand the world of the rich. Okay. Chu Liyue took the star nether sword embryo and moved to the side. Sheng Guanjing asked, do you really want to try it now? Tang Ku and Mr. Su are refining together and have almost all of the Tianlei. Under such circumstances, if you want to succeed, you have to snatch the Tianlei from them. This is even more difficult than refining a venerable artifact. Chu Liyue nodded. This is a rare opportunity. If she could refine with Mr. Su and Tang Ku at the same time, she would be able to see the gap between her and them. This would undoubtedly greatly increase her efficiency. Moreover, she also wanted to see how far she could go with her current strength. Seeing that she had made up her mind, Shang Guanjing laughed. All right. Since you wants to do this, then Taizu will accompany you. With that, he threw the star nether sword embryo in front of him. Chu Luiyue nodded and did as she was told. Rumble. She looked up with fighting spirit surging in her eyes. Shang Guanjing raised his voice. Your strength in refining is still not enough. You don't have to force yourself. As long as you can snatch a Tianlei from those two, you'll win. Ever since he saw Chu Luiyue's potential in Tang Ku's tomb in the stone forest, Shang Guanjing had high hopes for her. After all, he was a refiner himself, so he naturally hoped that Chu Luiyue could inherit his legacy. In other words, he hoped that she could shine in refining. It was also because of this that he agreed to Chu Luiyue's suggestion without hesitation. He even secretly had a trace of anticipation in his heart. Not to mention her, even an ordinary refiner might not dare to guarantee that they would be able to successfully refine a venerable artifact under the influence of those two. Not to mention Chu Luiyue? In his opinion, Chu Luiyue could indeed be considered a success if she could snatch a Tianlei. Chu Luiyue stood in midair and quickly mobilized the force in her body, causing the aura around her to rise crazily. Then with a thought she began to activate Tianlei. At this moment she was flanked by Tang Ku and Su Li. Shang Guanjing was not far from her. Of course. Above their heads, countless subs. These Tianleis were also, worse. They landed in a very regular pattern. Every time there were 5, and each landed on the 5 nebula sword embryos. From this, it could be seen that Tang Ku and Su Li's control of Tianleis had reached a terrifying level. To snatch Tianlei from them meant that they had to break their monopoly. That was the most difficult part. As if sensing the power on Chu Luiyue's side, the Tianleis in the sky became restless. A few seemed to want to fly toward Chu Luiyue's side. However, under Tang Ku and Su Li's strict control, Tianleis still lingered in their position, unwilling to land. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes slightly and raised her hand to grab him. Come down. Boom. As if someone had suddenly torn open a hole, Tianleis fell with a loud rumble, heading straight for Chu Luiyue. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2171. Boom. Tianlei flew down, drawing a dazzling line in the sky, and then fiercely smashed onto the star dark sword embryo in front of Chu Luiyue. The silver light quickly shattered into countless tiny rays of light, enveloping the ice blue sword embryo. Crackle, crackle, crackle. The sound was intertwined. Chu Luiyue could clearly feel that there were two forces fighting back and forth. After a moment, the light gradually dissipated, and the star dark sword embryo gradually revealed its original appearance. Chu Luiyue looked carefully and realized that the color of the sword embryo had changed. It seemed to be purer and deeper than before. Although the change was extremely small, it was certain that the Tianlei from before had indeed had a tempering effect on the sword embryo. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up. No matter what, a good start was half the battle. If she could snatch one, she could snatch more. Perhaps. It was unknown if she could really completely refine it in the end. Chu Luiyue looked at Shang Guanjing and smiled brightly. Taizu, thank you for your auspicious words. Shang Guanjing looked at the star dark sword embryo in front of Chu Luiyue, and then looked at his own. His expression became extremely strange. This girl. Her movements are too fast. I haven't even made a move yet. She's already started? However, after a short period of shock, Shang Guanjing's heart was filled with relief and joy. He didn't know why, but summoning Tianlei seemed to be exceptionally easy for this girl. It was the same when they were in Tang Ku's tomb. She was the only one who could incite and devour the heavenly lightning that everyone else avoided. With such talent, it would be a pity if she didn't become a refiner. Ah, girl, well done. Shang Guanjing was in a good mood. Just do whatever you want. Right now he had the same thought as Rongxiu. This was a rare opportunity, let the girl practice. In any case, with so many people here, there was no need to worry about anything uncontrollable happening. Once they found any signs of something amiss, they would immediately intercept and deal with it. And if everything went smoothly, she would benefit greatly this time. With that, he held his breath and began to activate Tianlei. Boom. Boom. Several bolts of Tianlei came crashing down. Clearly he had a much easier time doing this than Chu Luiyue. When the surrounding crowd saw this scene, they could not help but sigh inwardly. No wonder Senior Tang Ku said that Sheng Guanjing is very likely to become an equipment refining saint. His skill in refining equipment is indeed perfect. Yes. Under the circumstances where Tang Ku and Mr. Su are competing for Tianlei, he can still refine weapons so smoothly and freely. This is not something an ordinary person can do. Isn't it widely acknowledged that Sheng Guanjing is powerful? His name had been resounding since 1,000 years ago. It wasn't strange for him to be able to do this. I'm more curious about Master Yu. Previously, she had only heard that Yu Zhu was an all-rounder in cultivation, but there were very few rumors about her refining weapons. Who would have thought that he would be so heaven-defying in this aspect? Did you see how that bolt of heavenly lightning came down? Everyone was talking about it. All kinds of voices could be heard, but Chu Luiyue did not care. After the first Tianlei was successfully activated, the rest of the process became much simpler. She began to follow Tang Ku and Su Li, activating the Tianlei to refine the Star Dark Sword embryo. They were refining 5 weapons together and she was refining 1, so the process was consistent. In comparison, Sheng Guanjing became the fastest one. With his current strength, it was indeed very easy for him to refine a venerable divine weapon. Especially when he used such good materials, it was like icing on the cake. Bolts of Tianlei fell from the sky one after another. Many people's gazes wandered back and forth between them. On one hand, they wanted to observe how the legendary refining saint refined weapons. On the other hand, they also wanted to see how Chu Luiyue snatched the Tianlei from the two of them, and if she could succeed. Of course, other than that, they were also comparing the various aspects of refining weapons, such as the control of Tianlei's strength and techniques. In the beginning, many people thought that Chu Luiyue would not be able to hold on for long. However, as time passed, they were shocked to find that Chu Luiyue did not seem to be defeated. In fact, she even followed Tang Ku and Su Li closely with every Tianlei. It was almost the same rhythm as the two of them. Thus, the crowd gradually became numb from the initial shock. Fortunately, many people had already seen how heaven-defying Chu Luiyue was when the Peach Blossom Cove was in chaos, so when they saw this scene, they quickly accepted it. It seems like she can do everything well? There were also some people who glanced at Rong Xiu from time to time. He stood outside the dazzling silver light with his hands behind his back, as if he had nothing to do with all this. He looked calm and composed. The violent energy waves spread to the surroundings, but when it reached him, it turned into a gentle wind, only lifting a corner of his snow-white robe. He was as graceful as a celestial, cold and noble. However, did all this really have nothing to do with him? Of course not. He was the one who provided these extremely precious and rare materials for refining artifacts. Moreover, the reason why he did not participate was because he did not need them. Even if the crowd did not hear the conversation between him and Chu Luiyue, it was not difficult to guess that he had most likely broken through to become a refining venerable. This was almost an indisputable fact. After this, according to Tang Ku and Su Li, all the divine weapons that were refined would belong to Chu Luiyue and Su Li. Moreover, Rong Xiu seemed to intend to let Chu Luiyue handle all of them. In other words, these divine weapons would eventually belong to Chu Luiyue. And this would be an extremely shocking number. Sanson moved to Xin Yi's side, rubbing his round palms as he whispered, "Big brother, the Holy Sun is going to give our master a big gift. Who can take out so many treasures in such a short time? Do you think he prepared them long ago?" Xin Yi placed one hand behind his back, his expression calm and indifferent, ignoring him. Sanson did not give up and continued to ask, "I think it must be so. Why didn't he say earlier or later? He just had to take out so many at once when Senior Tang Ke said she wanted them. I'm guessing that they must have discussed this beforehand. Sir Su doesn't seem to know, but now she joined in and became a free labor force. However, she was obsessed with refining weapons, so this was not a loss to her. Instead, it allowed her to satisfy her cravings. Everyone was happy. Xin Yi gave Sanson an indifferent look. Seeing his small eyes flickering with excitement, Xin Yi directly shattered his fantasy. The Saint and Senior Tang Ke's intentions are already very clear. These will belong to Master in the end and will not be stored. In other words, they would not be under Sanson's control. Sanson's face quickly fell, but he quickly regained his confidence and chuckled. That doesn't matter. I'll just count. Wonderful book house. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.